All right. All right, 7:01, time to start, Taylor. Okay.
Wonderful.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Mary Pat O'Neill, and I'm an independent college counselor, and I created the Find Your Fit program for the Lake Washington Schools Foundation. And I'm very excited tonight because this is a first-time topic that we've ever done. It is on how to pick classes in high school. And I'm thrilled because I am joined by Taylor Reuhl, who is a counselor at Juanita High School. She works in the district, has worked in the district for years. She's also a licensed marriage and family counselor or therapist, so she's got lots of background. And we're excited. As we were just saying, there was a big interest in this topic. So I'm glad that we're doing it. A couple things before we start the presentation. Any of you who have attended Find Your Fit programs before might be shocked at this, but I'm actually sharing my PowerPoint tonight. I normally never share my PowerPoint. I give out handouts, but you will receive the actual slides from tonight's presentation. And Taylor and I will be available to answer questions after the presentation. We're going to be taking turns with different slides, so we may look at the questions and try to answer them if we can through chat and all that. But anyways, so let's get started. And as I said, anyone who's gone to Find Your Fit presentations knows that every time I start, I always have to restart it for some reason. I don't know what it does. Oops, I don't know what it does. Okay, there we go. There we go. Come on. Oh, heck, this is worse than usual. Okay, let me stop sharing here for a second. As I told Taylor, it's not a Find Your Fit presentation if there isn't technical difficulties.
There's a way of being able to do it remotely, and there are the sorrows of doing it remotely.
Yeah, sorry. Even when I try it in advance, it does not help.
Hey, Mary Pat, while you are problem solving, there are a couple of questions about whether or not the recording is going to, or whether the session is going to be recorded. And I wondered if you could answer that real quick.
Yes, it is being recorded right now, so everybody gets to see my technical difficulties in person here. Now I know what happened. There we go. Now let me share yes, this is being recorded. What will happen, the foundation is great about doing this. They will, Bonnie at the foundation will send it out to everybody who registered. So if we realize everybody's busy, there we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, hooray, now we're on track. Yes, so the recording will be sent out to everybody. You will also receive the PowerPoint slide deck. So what we're going to be covering tonight, we're going to be talking about high school graduation requirements, what colleges look at, some suggestions for classes, for specific college majors for students who have an idea what they want to study, how to read a course catalog in the Lake Washington School District Planner, different types of classes that are offered. We're going to talk about high school classes that students might have taken in middle school. We're going to talk about retaking or classes or changing schedules. And as I said, we're going to be open to questions. One of the great things about the foundation is that we don't limit the audience to only Lake Washington School District families. So some of you maybe from other school districts, I'll try to address some things like IB classes and things like that, but the basic information is still going to be the same. And the reason why I'm so happy that Taylor is here, so I'm an independent college counselor, but I am not a school counselor. I always say I know enough to probably be dangerous. And Taylor is the school counselor and she's not a college counselor. So together we make a perfect package.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, we're working together. So, all right. So I'll be in charge of forward. And I think this next slide is yours, Taylor.
Wonderful. Okay. So I have worked in high schools for the last, I'm in my 11th year right now. Our graduation requirements have shifted over the last few years, and those are dictated actually by the state. OSPI creates those. So we are now, if you remember, we all as like a community shifted to 7 period days. And that was actually driven by the state graduation requirements of 24 credits. We moved from 22 to 24. So this is a summary of the graduation requirements. We need 4 years of English. That's your 9, 10, 11, 12. Science was increased so that we've got 3 years of science, 2 that are lab-based. In Lake Washington School District, all freshmen across the district take biology. And then we've got our math, 3 credits of math. We'll talk a little bit more specifically later about math and kind of how to get those, but 3 are required for graduation. World languages, 2 is our minimum. Social studies is a combination of 3. Some of the schools, this is actually just interesting, is our comprehensive high schools. And when I say comprehensive, I'm talking Juanita, Lake Washington High School, Eastlake, and
Redmond.
Thank you. I was like, there's one more. And I mean, even the choice schools, STEM, ICS, we all do our social studies just a little bit different. The state requires that you have 1.0 of world history and 1.0 of US history, and then a 0.5 of civics and a 0.5 of another social studies elective. Lots of things can fit for that. Our art credits, we've got 2 credits of art. PE is a 1.5. Lots of questions always about PE. That does not include health. Those are separate. PE is a 1.5 and health is a 0.5 that is a separate standalone. Our CTE and OC-Ed, if you've been in the district and you've been around for a while, you find yourself calling it an OC-Ed all the time, but it has transitioned to CTE, Career and Tech Ed courses. And then we have 4 credits of elective. Again, this is an interesting question that parents always ask me about is, will I ever get to that 4 credits of elective? If you just think about your lab sciences, or if you think about math, or even with world language, anything that exceeds the credits that are required, the minimum for graduation, those all kick down and become electives. So let's pretend that you're doing Spanish, you do Spanish 1, you do Spanish 2. Well, Spanish 3 is more than the graduation requirement. Spanish 3 will kick down and be your elective credit. So you will get there. It will just be closer to your junior and senior year.
Perfect. Okay, do you want to talk about this now?
Oh boy, will I. So grad pathway is and high school and beyond plan. That's what HSBP stands for. Grad pathway is interesting. This is new in the last few years. And what you're noticing is it actually is on your student's transcript. It's at the very bottom. And this is statewide. So the state has required a graduation pathway. I'm going to get back to that one because Mary Pat's got a wonderful slide where it talks about the specific ways. So I'm going to focus on high school and beyond plan. Again, this is a state graduation requirement. What Lake Washington School District uses is an online program called Zello. So that's that nice X word. And so we start that actually in 8th grade, and you have specific assignments that you start in 8th grade. And it will, it looks like your grad pathway planning. So it looks like you're planning for your 4-year planner. That's part of your Zello assignments. And then you'll have specific assignments your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. It will not show as met on your student's transcript until late May, early June. Like it is right before graduation that will show met. So you'll look at their transcript and be like, oh my gosh, why doesn't it say met? Don't panic, it won't be. We do it right before graduation to give students, our stragglers, as much time as possible to complete high school and beyond. So going back to grad pathway, I'm going to ask you, Mary Pat, to go to the next one.
Okay. And I have a quick question. So
yeah.
the student has not, let's say they missed something in, I don't know, 10th grade. Do the counselors reach out to this? Like, will the student know? Are they contacted by the counselor or the student?
They're not contacted by the counselor. Well, you might be, but traditionally we have a high school and beyond plan coordinator in each building. Okay. Sometimes it's a part-time counselor. Sometimes a counselor is just a part of their role. Each building really gets autonomy on how they get that need met, but there is a high school and beyond coordinator in each building that will reach out to your student, who will make sure. Once upon a time, in its very baby birth, I mean, we were tracking students down and collecting them and like, sit down and finish this.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a all hands on deck effort when we're getting close to June. But no worries. Your student does these assignments in homeroom. They do them during their wolf time, during their root time, during their whatever is their time that they have. These are their lessons that are actually directed to them, and they are very straightforward. There is nothing about it that is like overly complex, and they're meant to drive post-high school planning. They are really, really valuable. They've got some very cool modules. Yeah, absolutely. So grad pathway options, this is a quick little overview of what this looks like. You can get your grad pathway met in any of these 7 ways. The one that we find is, like, we start with the state assessment, if you can see, the Smarter Balanced. If you get your English language arts or your math score that are above those threshold, it meets your grad pathway for this state, which is awesome. If that doesn't work, then what ends up happening is we bump down and we'll look at all of these other options. We'll look at these dual credit classes. So like students who are doing Running Start, or if they have like a college in the high school course, those are dual credit, and one that is in English based and one that is math based, that can meet your grad pathway requirement. Same to be said if you see like AP Cambridge, you've got AP, you've got Cambridge for math, and for English, if you'll notice there's a theme, it has to be math and English. We'll also have students who maybe they've passed the English portion, the ELA portion of their SBA, but then they have passed maybe their math portion, the math threshold of their SAT. Those can be combined, both of those. The tricky piece is that we don't always have SAT or ACT scores that are sent to us at the school, so we don't necessarily know. So it would be very beneficial if your student did well or plans on meeting their grad pathway to ensure that your counselor, that your school has a copy of your SAT or your ACT so that we can see if it meets that threshold.
Question, Taylor, do they need to be official in the sense that the student sends the scores, or can they just give them like something from College Board that shows their scores?
Such a wonderful question. Most counselors can look up on College Board in order to see SAT or ACT, but we won't naturally go seeking it because we don't need it for any other real reason. Right. And so it would have to be a, hey, I mean, for example, this legitimately came to me today. Hey, Ms. Reuhl, I took the SAT. Can you check on College Board or have somebody check on College Board to see if I met the threshold for grad pathway? Awesome. It's an easy thing to look at, but I just won't go seeking out unless I know. We do the big clean sweep, to be quite honest, of starting with the state assessment. It's the easiest and it's awesome. It's very nice and easy. It's tight. The other thing is we have the ASVAB. The ASVAB is the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. I will say it is a very wonderful test to take to get this met. It does not mean that that you are going into the military. It doesn't at all. You just need to get a 31 or higher on the test. It doesn't mean that your results are sent to the military. We are not assuming you're going into the military. It's just an aptitude test.
And do the schools offer that, the high schools?
They do. Most high schools are actually offering them in April. I want to say the next testing date actually for Juanita is on April 4th. I know for the online school, they're also doing it on April 4th. So it's April-ish.
Okay.
And the CTE sequence is the one that we probably talk about high school counselors the most, just because it happens a little bit more organically. As your student finds more things that they're really curious and interested in, they start to take classes within a sequence. The more CTE classes that you end up taking, if you take 2 credits of CTE in one specific pathway, it meets your pathway naturally. So it doesn't even need to be met by a state assessment or any of those other options.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask you some questions that I don't know.
Oh, tell me. Yeah.
Okay. So back when we did the grad requirements, there was PPR or
yes.
What does that stand for?
It's your personal pathway. And so what that means is, let's say that your student, plans on taking their personal pathway, which means their post-high school plan includes something that needs one specific class. Let's say that they want to go into nursing, and for just all intents and purposes, they will not have space for another, like maybe art credit, and they need to take anatomy and physiology. Great. That is like, here is your end goal. And we already know because you are applying to schools and you're doing this, or you're in the WANIC program. Great. This meets your personal pathway.
Okay. And then I'm hesitant to answer this one because I think it's going to open up a ball of worms or something like that. Yeah. But it says it's about PE. Yeah. Does participating on the high school swim team earn PE credits?
No,
I know.
the last time, it's actually, I mean, I get asked it every year,
I
right?
know.
Because I feel like if you're of a certain age, that's just how it went. Like I did that, right?
Right. Yeah, my
So
daughter did it for dance, was able to get it.
absolutely, yeah. But 2016 was the last graduating class that could do that. So it is no longer. You cannot use sports in order to waive your PE.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna stop the questions now. Okay, can I go to the next slide?
You absolutely can.
All right. Okay. Oh, darn it. This is why I can't answer questions. Every time I do this.
Every time, that's okay. I will look at it again.
Okay. Okay. So I was going to talk. Oh, did you have more to say before I?
Nope, carry on.
Okay. So again, I'm approaching this as the college counselor. So while there's the high school graduation requirements, and that is a priority for students, we'll talk about other things like Running Start. You have to fulfill your high school graduation requirements. However, and some students know this already, sometimes colleges want more than what is the required, and it's recommended is what I should say. And usually where this comes up, it's foreign language. And again, is it every school? No. And I'll be talking in just a minute what colleges may be looking at in the college application. But this is for UW, all right, UW Seattle, and you can see what is required and then what they recommend. And this information is available on a great website. It's down there. It's called collegedata.com. You pull up any school you're looking at. Under the admissions tab, you scroll down, this is listed there. Now, I'm going to be the first to tell you, this is not like cement, like you must do that. And that's one of the things that Taylor and I are going to be stressing today. Everybody is different. This is not a one size fits all process. But for example, science, all right, you can see it, they recommend 4. And I remember a few years ago, I had a very bright student, super high achieving student, but she was not a STEM student. She didn't want to take, AP calculus. She didn't want to take physics. It wasn't what she liked. And so she didn't. And people were telling her, oh, you're never going to get in. And I'm like, yes, you will. Like, don't worry, because she had other things. So don't take this as, you must do this, but this is what the college recommends. I mean, obviously if it says required, that's different, but anyway, so just keep that in mind. But that's a great thing to look at, a great website to take a look at. Okay, so this slide shows what colleges may consider in the admissions process. I am not going to be talking about these. I will make a plug. On February 7th, I am doing a deep dive, College 101. I'll talk about it later on. So I'm not going to talk about what all these different things are too much. But there's the transcript. And when I say may consider, one of the things I always have to say about colleges when I'm asked questions is it depends on the college. So there's 5 possible things. Some colleges only want 1, some want 5, some want every number in between. They can weigh each of the items differently. And they are the transcript, and that is always required. You cannot apply to a 4-year college without a high school transcript. Some might want standardized test scores, some look at high school activities, some want letters of recommendation, which can come from a counselor, a high school teacher, or a non-high school teacher, otherwise known as an outsider. And then there's college essays. And Taylor's going to talk more about the counselor recommendation in a few minutes, but just to talk a little bit about grade point average, I'm going to say my part, Taylor, and then you can add in anything that you want to say. Yep. So people freak out about GPA all the time. And so please, I'm going to use the word unweighted and weighted. And that weighted word just sends everybody in a tizzy. Take a deep breath. In Washington State, we do not use weighted GPAs. We use a 4-point scale. And what a weighted GPA means is if a student was taking a class of rigor, and we'll talk about rigor, but that could be an AP class, it could be an IB class if you're in a different district, it could be an honors class, it could be college in the high school. So I'll use AP as an example. If a student is taking an AP class, they get an A if it was weighted, but it's not because we're in Washington State. Instead of a 4.0, they'd get a 5.0, all right? But we don't do that. Most colleges, not all, but most colleges, the cumulative GPA starts with classes taken in 9th grade. There are some schools that don't look at 9th grade, but for general intent and purposes, just assume they look at 9th grade. College applications are submitted in the fall of senior year. So at the time of application, junior year is the last year of grades that a college will see at the time of application. And that's why everybody talks about the importance of junior year grades, because it's the last year. This doesn't mean senior grades don't count. My seniors always go, oh, does that mean I don't have to worry about senior year? Yes, you do. They catch up with you. Students are asked what classes they're taking senior year on their college applications. Sometimes after they've submitted their applications, kids will be like, man, I'm going to drop those AP classes second semester. I'm always like, no, you can't. Because if you do, you have to notify all the colleges that you have changed your courses and stuff like that. On a college application, they say, what is your cumulative GPA at the time of, through junior year? And there's 2 boxes, weighted and unweighted. We will say unweighted because that's what ours are. And quite frankly, almost every college uses their own methodology for calculating GPA when they get a student's transcript in. So don't worry, they look, they see everything. And I always tell my students this is because I'm a mother plus a college counselor, but if you're in the Lake Washington School District, there is only an A, and then it goes to a B plus. And I've had kids who think a B plus is a 3.7. It's not, it's a 3.3. And there's nothing wrong with a B plus. B pluses are fabulous, good for you. However, it is a 0.7 drop in GPA. And so I just always tell kids, pay attention. Like if it's the week before the end of the semester and you realize you're at an 89.85, it may be too late to do something. But if a month or so behind, before then, you're like, oh, what can I do better on my exam? Can I do extra credit? Can, whatever. But it does drop your GPA. So just pay attention because we don't have A minuses like a lot of other districts do. Taylor, are you there? Do you
no, I totally am. It's so funny because I was just looking at something. I wanted to make sure before I said it. Are you cool with me going?
Yes, I'm done.
Great. Okay. So yeah, here's what's funny about the weighted GPA. We get asked that, and by we, I mean high school counselors, we get asked that all the time. The Common App is the common application that most schools, both in Washington State and in the United States, use. Old school, we would sit down. I always tell kids this, and then they think I'm like a dinosaur. But we had paper and pen. That's how I applied to college. I sat down at my dining room table. I had all of my applications, and you went through and you had to write them. Well, lucky enough, all the schools got together and said, hey, we're all asking the same information. So if we're all asking the same information, what if we had it in one centralized hub where we had the basics, and then you could add information that your specific school needed? So what students will do, they'll create an online profile. Typically that happens in maybe summer of their junior year, if not fall of their senior year. They create the profile and they get started on it. And really it's a lot of basic information, but they will be asked about, is your school a weighted GPA or an unweighted GPA? It is unweighted. The other one that we get asked every single year is, what's my class size?
Yeah, or no, class rank.
Oh, class rank. We don't do class rank.
We don't rank. We used to.
No, yeah, we used to. And the reason why we don't actually is because we went away with the A minus. Because what ends up happening is now you have an inequitable distribution.
Right.
It's not standardized anymore because then you have all of these students that have A's, and then the next one down is a B plus. So where you used to have like one, right, a valedictorian, now you have like 60.
Yeah.
Right. And so anyways, we don't do
class size you were going to talk about.
Yep. But we do have a class size. Counselors don't know that typically until about a month into school. The reason why is because we have such influx of students. We have students coming in, we have students leaving. We don't know that yet. So we will know before applications start. So it will be there. But what's interesting is that so from the counselor perspective, when seniors decide, okay, I got into school and it's semester 2. So semester 2 starts on Monday. So I am waiting for the influx of emails from my sweet seniors who are like, Miss Reuhl, can I just sleep in? Can I have like a rental? And I'm like, hey man, like I understand, but you got to check in with your school first because you're dropping your math class and you got in with the understanding that you were going to be taking the schedule. I, as a counselor, have to go into the Common App. If that student, any of my seniors, if they change their schedule, I have to tell the school they have changed their schedule. They no longer have this class. They dropped this. I have to upload a copy of their new schedule for semester 2. And then I also have to upload a copy of their mid-year report, their transcript from the mid-year from first semester. The reason why they do that, I mean, to be quite honest, is make sure that your student's on track. Some revoke
Oh, they do. Absolutely.
It happened. It's heartbreaking. But you just want to be really mindful when you're picking your classes, right? Because of that.
Yeah, I always tell my students that I'm working with, especially for senior year, I acknowledge senioritis. I actually respect it. I get it.
Yeah.
And for a lot of kids, it happens junior year. So that's why I always say, when you're picking your senior year classes, most students have fulfilled the majority of their graduation requirements. And that's why I tell kids, pick classes that you've always wanted to take, that you're excited to take. Now, this does not mean take 6 PE classes. Colleges don't really think very highly of that. But, you know, like if you were like, oh, I've always wanted to take film is lit or world religions or AP Gov or leadership, you know, I never had a chance, or choir, you know, whatever it is, you know, try to build a schedule that's going to excite you as much as possible for senior year.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, really, it's interest-based. When you're a senior, if you're sludging along with senioritis, if you are interested in the class, you have a higher likelihood of doing well and showing up and wanting to see it through.
And the other thing too is because college applications are typically completed in the fall. And again, depending on the school, there may or may not have essays, but those essays, I mean, I have some students who might have 20 to 30 college essays that they have to write. And I have some who have none. But if you're going to have a lot of essays, you do want to give yourself time because they're not easy to write.
Well, and every comprehensive high school, and what I mean by that, like I said, was the our non-choice school high schools, and even our choice schools, you're writing your high school, like your senior year, the very first essay that you're doing is actually your personal statement. So anybody who is applying for college, you're doing it as an assignment anyways. So your student shouldn't feel like it is an addition, in addition to, you're getting a really great start in your English class and getting that started for application season. The thing I was checking on actually is every parent has access to their student's transcript on Family Access. When you look at the transcript, it'll produce a PDF for you. If you look at the very top, it actually has a like a key, a grade point table at the very top. So if you're ever curious about what grade equates to what GPA, it's at that table on your student's transcript that you can look at. Makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah. And the other thing, again, this is just something that I see a lot. Again, we're going to talk about rigor and grades and stuff like that. But students, you should try to pay attention to what your GPA is. I'm always surprised when I meet like a 10th grader and I'm like, oh, what's your GPA? And they're like, oh, and they'll say some number. And then when I get their transcript, there's a big discrepancy and it's usually lower. And again, that's fine. There's schools for everybody. You don't have to get all A's, anything like that, but pay attention, you know, because it does, you know, your high school transcript is actually, if you decide that a four-year college is what you want to apply to, it is kind of the start of your application. So your grades they do matter. So
there was a couple of questions that it was actually about like P grading. I know that there's a lot of people that do what's called the World Language Proficiency Test.
Is that the stamp exam?
Well, that's one of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so what it is it's if your primary language, the language you grew up speaking, it's your home language, is something other than English, the district provides the opportunity for you to take the language proficiency test twice for free. It's all district led. So you can easily go to the Lake Washington School District website and you just search up in the thing, you just language test. We offer it, I want to say it's like 3 or 4 times a year, and it shifts at what school hosts it. You sign up for it, your student goes to wherever it is, takes the test, and then you're notified of the result. And your student can earn anywhere from 1 to 4 credits. Okay. Your student gets a P, and what that means is pass.
Yeah.
What it does is it doesn't calculate into your GPA. So it doesn't matter if you get 1 or 4 credits, those won't be having any sort of impact on your GPA. But what it does count towards are your language credits.
Right.
So if you get 4 credits of, Spanish credits because you are a fluent native speaker, then you meet your graduation requirement, and then you have 2 extra credits because you got 4 that are now elective credits. You do not have to continue taking more language in the district after that for meeting your graduation requirement.
I will say, again, depending on where a student is applying to college, again, for most colleges, you're exactly right. But there are other colleges, the more selective colleges, who, in addition to, let's say you get a 3 or a 4, they may like to see a different language in addition to that, like 2 years of Spanish or 2 years of Mandarin in addition to that home language. So just, again, it totally depends on the college, but some would be impressed with that.
Yeah,
so because there's not a grade with the world language part. So
yeah, that P just doesn't calculate into your GPA. So there's no impact on what we're talking about with GPA.
Okay. All right. So just a real quick on GPA, and remembering that we do not have a weighted GPA here. I just want to show the impact, and this is just one example, and I could show other state schools and it would be very different, but this is the University of Washington Seattle campus. This is a breakdown of admitted student GPA from last year. So you can see, and I always tell kids there's buckets. The top bucket is the 4.0 to 3.75 bucket. Then you have 3.74 to 3.5, you just keep going down. So you can see that 93% of admitted students last year to UW had a 3.5 or higher. So if I was meeting with a student and their dream is to go to UW, and let's say they have a 3.1, which great, it's a little higher than a B, I'm going to have to break it to them that it's highly unlikely that they will go as a freshman. There's other paths to get to UW and all that, but this is why GPA does matter, and students should pay attention. Again, there's so many wonderful colleges, most colleges in the US accept at least half the students who apply, but I always tell students, you're going to have more choices if you can, with higher GPA. So that's how that works. But that's not to stress anybody out, because there's schools for everybody. All right, let's talk about the counselor recommendation, Taylor.
Oh, yay. So one of the biggest misconceptions with asking your counselor at the beginning of the school year is the counselor recommendation. I really wish that Common App would title it differently. And college applications would title it differently, because it gets a little bit confusing both for students and parents alike. The counselor recommendation, what we can view on the online application from the counselor perspective is we can see all of the schools that your student is applying for. Now, I just want to say, and Mary Pat, you might have a different, I'm actually super curious about your perspective on this, because from the high school counselor perspective, my train of thought here is, if you are a student who's applying for 30 schools, you haven't done your work. You haven't done the work to narrow down your qualifications, the match of and we'll talk more about how to match. Actually, Mary Pat, I think you talk more about that in February at yours.
Yeah, the College 101 meeting. Yeah,
but if you're applying for 30 schools, you haven't done the work to narrow it down.
Too many.
Yeah,
they do it, but it's too many in my opinion.
Yeah, and most of the kids don't realize it's so cute. It's like Amazon shopping, right? I mean, they don't even realize they're like putting schools in their cart, and then they look at the total because you still have college application fees. Each one be anywhere from like $50 to $80.
Right.
So if they're Amazon shopping and it's 30 applications, all of a sudden you're in there for thousands of dollars. You're like, oh shoot, wait, hold on a minute.
And that doesn't even
It's
take
real
into account
overwhelming real quick.
doesn't take into account the cost of, kids are putting on colleges that are $80,000 a year, and their parents have no idea. No.
Yep, nope. So, but from a counselor perspective, we can see all the schools that you're applying for. And then it's got this thing where it says counselor recommendation. The counselor recommendation is actually misleading. It's more I would say the counselor's supplemental information. What we do is we confirm what your student has input.
Yeah,
So
isn't it more like a factual thing? Like,
it's kind of
their GPA and
it's fact checking. It's saying, like, is this accurate? They have said that they're taking this class. Here's what they said their GPA is. Can you confer?
they've never been disciplined, right? Things like that.
There's a lot of questions on that. There's a lot of things like how rigorous is their schedule compared to the rest of their peers, or there's a lot of it's more of tell me how they compare. Now, it's tricky because for a lot of students, maybe we don't know a ton about them, and that's not a problem. That's okay. Some students are really independent and they have got this figured out flat, like it's good. It doesn't get held against them. It's not weighted heavier if your counselor has more response than not.
Especially at a public school. That's what I tell my students, is that it's not, I mean, there are some students who I'm sure that you're very close with, them, and you can write a very personal letter, counselor recommendation. Both of my children, they were independent. They're like, I think I've seen my counselor for a total of 45 seconds over 4 years, or they changed them every year because the alphabet changed, whatever. It's okay. I always tell kids, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I would say, it's a mixed bag, right? It's public school, so it's really tricky. I've always hovered around like a 1 to 375, sometimes 1 to 400 ratio. That's really tricky. It's hard to know
it's
that
hard.
Students.
And colleges know that.
Yeah, and we also have to attach the profile, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But the gives demographics of our schools. So the counselor recommendation is, it can be a letter. But what I will say is this: if your student doesn't know your counselor and that's their primary relationship, that's okay. But they need to be making a connection, a relationship with someone in the building that can speak to them mindfully. It's so funny. I had this student who came to me years ago and he was like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and ask so-and-so for a letter of recommendation. And I was like, okay, but didn't you have an issue with this teacher your sophomore year? And why are we picking this person? Like, if you're going to pick of all the people who have known you now for 4 years, why are we picking this person? And he was like, I guess I don't really know anybody else that well. I'm like, oh, okay. So I would say, if your student has somebody who they have a connection with, we all have that teacher that we can remember right now, build and foster that relationship. Your student needs to reach out to them face to face, not just email. Go and make a connection with this person, so that when they do need to ask something of them, they can speak beautiful things about them that nobody else do, because it is valuable information. So the counselor recommendation can be that letter, but most of the time it is not. Most of the time it is confirming very specific details about their GPA, about their academic record, about all sorts of stuff. And honestly, colleges will call us. We get called all the time. They will ask questions about, what does this look like? Actually, you said this, but what is this? They call and clarify. So counselor recommendation looks different.
Okay, so I do have a question, and I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying about connecting with somebody. If colleges can require counselor recommendations, but not teacher recommendations. And again, at the College 101, that's going to be a deep dive. I'll go into all that. A question for you, because again, I'm not a school counselor. So that form, is it the same? Is it one form, you fill it out and it goes to every college that the student has applied to?
Yep.
It's a uniform form.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm
So
saying.
there is like a compilation of information that every single school is going to want and access. So it's going to be your normal demographic. Where do you live? What's your name? Your birthday? It's going to be all those things. Every single school that you're applying for is going to want your transcript. So I will upload your transcript. I will also upload your class schedule. I will upload those things because all schools will request that. They all are asking that. But then you might be applying for a public school that only wants to have like your personal statement, but you also might be applying for a private school that has religious affiliation, and they want to talk specifically, they want to ask you questions that are about your, your religious service. What does that look like? That's not universal information. So they'll all be able to access maybe these like 4 or 5 pieces, and then they separate out and ask individual based on the school.
And last thing before we go on to the next slide, and you can agree or disagree with me, but I always tell students, please do not wait until the last minute to ask your counselor for whatever it is. So what is, I tell them at least a month they should ask, but what do you, what would you like? Or what's your...
There is nothing worse. I'm not kidding you. I got this when we got back from
Christmas.
Yeah, it was like holiday break, but it was in between because it was a January 15th deadline, and January 15th was Martin Luther King weekend, right? And I got it on Saturday night at 9:30 and said, hey, Miss Reuhl, this is due tomorrow. Can you do this? Child, I am not looking at my email on the weekends and doing this. No, please, please, please. And I know they are 17 and I get it, but this is natural consequences, pals. You have got to meet the deadline. Do it a month in advance.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be also mindful of breaks, holiday, weekends. You can't,
especially during the holiday breaks and things like that. Absolutely.
And last year it was COVID. You can't be guaranteed that somebody's going to be in the building able to do it for you that day.
Yeah.
So plan accordingly.
Okay. So I was reading some of the questions. I apologize for this. I don't mean to, but some people, and I get this, families who aren't, didn't go to school here in the US. They're saying we're using abbreviations, and I'm not sure which ones we're using. So I will try to make sure. So somebody was asking what the CTE is. Career technology. You can say it. Go.
Career in technology and tech ed. So it's career and technological education. So really what they are career driven electives that can be really specific, really specialized. You'll notice if you go on the Lake Washington School District website, you'll look at our course catalog, and it's actually a district-wide course catalog.
We're gonna go to that, I think.
Yeah, but it will tell you, you can go to a CTE section and it will show you all of the course offerings in the district of all the CTE classes that are available. It's just another subject, just like you would English or math.
Yeah, and then when I use the term AP, it stands for advanced placement classes. Somebody was also asking about honors classes when I was talking about weighting, even though remember we don't weight.
Yeah.
But honors classes, if they were weighted, it's typically a 0.5 addition to a class of a student. If they were weighted, we're not weighted. But if a student got an A in an honors class instead of a 4, it'd be a 4.5 is typically how it goes. So,
but not in our district.
Yeah. Oh, darn it. I don't know why this keeps freezing up. I apologize, everybody.
Yeah. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm looking at some other ones. There's questions about taking world language. I'm going to say one brief thing because we are going to talk about it again. We'll talk about it for middle school. But if your student's transcript says they're in their freshman year and they take Spanish 2, colleges know that your students to have taken Spanish 1 in 8th grade. They automatically come up on the transcript, but like Mary Pat said, colleges are only interested in looking at a transcript that's 9th through 12th grade. Your 8th grade grades are not necessarily something they're interested in looking at. It's same kind of with math. They know math progression. So if your student is starting in geometry, they know they had to have taken algebra 1.
Yes.
It's good to go. They're trusting the district that you took the requirements in your.
Yes. So we mentioned something that's called a school report. It can also be called a high school profile. Some colleges will ask for this in the actual application. And Taylor was talking about sending that. Other colleges like the University of Washington, Washington State, they actually already have the information. And so you don't send it to UW because they don't want it because they already have it. So this is the information that is typically contained in a school report. It talks about the size of this high school, the demographics of students, and the percent who are receiving free and reduced lunch. They talk about the graduation rate of the high school students, the number of students who after graduation go on to a 4-year college, a 2-year college, the military, average ACT and SAT scores. Those are standardized testing scores. That's what an ACT, SAT is. And then they disclose the classes of rigor, okay? And this depends on the high school. So my kids went to Eastlake. Eastlake has honors classes, then they have UW in the classroom. UW stands for University of Washington. And then they have AP classes, which again is the AP classes. If you're at Skyline, they have honors classes, they have IB, which stands for the International Baccalaureate. You know, it all depends on the high school. And the reason why they want to know this is because just like people are different and colleges are different, high schools are different. We are in a phenomenal public school district and we have fabulous schools, but there are schools in the state of Washington that don't offer regular calculus, let alone AP calculus. And colleges don't want to penalize students for not taking harder classes if they're not offered. And again, there's some colleges, they don't care about the harder classes. They look at the GPA, but there are colleges, University of Washington is certainly one of them, University of California system, they do pay attention to rigor. So what was I gonna, I had an important thought here and I can't think of what it was. I'm sure it'll come back to me. But so this is, oh, I know what I was going to say. So I get a ton of questions, usually around this time, because it's usually middle school parents and they're trying to make a decision about high school. And, you know, maybe they got into a choice high school, one of our choice high schools. Maybe they're thinking about going to a private school. And I'm always asked, what's the, you know, what school should we pick? And I always tell families, in my opinion, you pick the school that's the right fit for the student, where your student is going to thrive, have friends, be challenged, enjoy school, look forward to going to school, because all colleges do is they look at the school report. They don't go, that kid could have gone to XYZ high school or this choice. They don't care about any of that. They just look, where did the student go and what did they do within what was offered to them. And again, we're going to talk about rigor because this does not mean you should be taking 15 AP classes. No, you shouldn't. But anyway, so Taylor, do you have anything you want to say about school report before we go to the next slide?
No, I mean, we counselors have to gather this information. We get it from the state. OSPI updates it. We update our school report. We add our school report and our school profile to the Common App so that every single college can access it. I've never, ever had a college ask me questions about our school report ever. I've never had anybody come back and have any sort of anything. It's never been asked. So, yep, we provide it and it's good to go.
And they're relatively easy to find. This is part of Redmond's school report. I just typed in, I went to Redmond's website and it was like school report. I know Juanita has it super easy peasy, looks great. So this is just the type of information. And one of the things that the school reports talk about is that weird COVID semester that we had and how the grades were handled. And, again, I think that'll probably be coming off soon because we won't have high school students with that weird semester in a few years or whatever, but you can just see it shows all the different things, the AP classes offered, honors classes, 92% graduated after, went on to something after high school. Talked about the number of students who got national merit, were national merit finalists and all that. It's so, all that information is always there. Did you say something, Taylor? I'm sorry.
I just said, it's just a quick little summary.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't know, like, oh, you could have, you could have gone to this school. Why didn't you go to this? No, they just look at where you went and how you did.
Yeah.
Okay. So Taylor and I are both going to talk here about rigor. Do you want to go first? I've been talking for a while. You can go first.
Oh gosh. Sure. I think here's what's really, really tricky is I have a really different perspective on rigor. And the reason why I have a different perspective on rigor is because I'm a high school counselor. When your kid's life goes sideways, they come to me and I'm bound by confidentiality. So if you come to me and they're really upset about their classes and they've disclosed that to me and they're overwhelmed and they're super stressed and there's things that are happening, unless it is they're compromising their safety, I'm confidential. I cannot disclose that. So it's really tricky if it's being driven by family expectations. I keep kids' safety and mental health at my premium. It is my most important job. I am there for them, and sometimes it's only them. And so I really worry about this. All of my time, I was at LW for 10 years. And so rigor is a hard one to kind of butt up against. I get asked this question more than any other question, being a counselor, is how many APs is the right AP? Mm-hmm. And I think that initially, right, just asking that question is the problem with the question. Mm-hmm. There is no magical answer. There's no magical answer at the high school level. There's no magical level at the college level. There isn't an answer. It's when we say it's individual, it legitimately is individual. We also can't ask our students to be amazing at everything. That's not a person. That's not reality. So what I tell students is, what do you like? Yep. What are you interested in? And that is a driving force for what you should be taking. I don't think you should be taking AP in 5 different subjects. I actually kind of don't think you should in 3. What you're doing is you're compromising the opportunity to do really well in that class, because you have to understand that what we just talked about was the importance of a GPA. But if you are so overworked and stretched so thin to do all of the things, how will you do that well? They don't add up. It is really something gets compromised, and happy, healthy kids, they stay alive. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest. So I want them happy and healthy. And I know that you do too as parents. You want them happy and healthy. And so what I would say is let them drive the conversation. Be curious about what are you interested in? And it might shock you. It might be something that you never thought, because we as parents have these beautiful ideas of what our children will become. And it's really hard when they get shaken and it's not what we thought it was going to be. Everybody will get in where they need to go.
Right. And so I agree wholeheartedly with you. And sometimes what happens is there's a lot of comparison. Like, you can't go to the grocery store and, oh, how many AP classes is your kid? And these parents are, oh, so-and-so is doing this. And so you have to do this. And I hear this from my students. They're like, oh my gosh, I am made to feel that if I don't, I'm not going to say any specific numbers because I don't want anybody to think that's the right thing. If I'm not taking X amount, I am made to feel less than. And that is just so ridiculous. So yes, again, depending on the students, colleges may like to see rigor. Not all colleges do. My own kids never took an AP class until they were juniors. And just like you said, they took them in the area that interested them. My son, oh my gosh, loved math and science. Give him a English or history class, he would have done horribly. And that's the thing, because GPA is, GPA is important. And if you're going to get B's or C's in an AP class, that is not going to help you at all. And the other thing I can tell you, this is sincere, because a lot of times my students will say, hey, Mary Pat, this is what I'm thinking. And, they're 10th graders and they might be planning to take 5 AP classes. And I always say, please do not do that. That is too much, because remember, there's more than just a transcript that can be part of a college application. And they're like, no, I can do it. And then when we're working on their college essays for senior year, I'm reading about their suicide attempts. And it has happened more than once. And it is just devastating. Or these kids feel like, or they'll tell me, they're like, I am under so much pressure in high school. I can't stand it. Or I feel like I have to be perfect. And whenever somebody describes their child, oh, they're a perfectionist, red flags go off for me, because there is no such thing as perfection. And that's way too much pressure. So please, if you love biology and you want to take AP bio, great. But if you don't feel like you have to take all these classes, it's just too much. And I don't want to keep going on. You and I could talk forever about this, but please take it seriously. This, there's, when a school, if you're thinking, oh, but if I take X amount, it's going to guarantee I get into Stanford. No, it's not, because 97% of students who apply to Stanford are rejected, and they all have all that. It's not enough to do it. So anyways, all right, let's keep going. All right. So I just thought I would give, this is suggested. This is not required, but if a student in high school has some thoughts about what they might want to study in college, and remember, none of this is set in stone, I just have listed some classes that they might want to consider. And it may be that at your high school, they don't offer some of these classes, because not every high school does, but pre-med, math is important. Obviously, sciences are important, and English, they like to see strong communication skills. In computer science, again, math is important. The chemistry and physics is important because it's such a math-based science, and then obviously computer science. In nursing, they like to see math, but they like to see statistics for nursing. Again, the science is important, and as you mentioned earlier, anatomy and physiology, but not all the high schools offer it, I don't think. Engineering, math, calculus and statistics, physics, computer science, engineering classes, if your school offers them. Not all the schools do. And then for business, again, math is important, including calculus. They like to see strong writing skills, business classes, computer science, and then in architecture, 4 years of math, English, studio art, and then physics, obviously, because you have to know how buildings can stand up, I guess. So, okay. Do you want me to stop sharing my screen so that you can are you planning to actually go to the course catalog? How do you want to do this?
No, I'm not going to. And the reason is because it's so much information.
Yeah, it is.
And I will caution you, go to the course catalog with an open mind, and perhaps, your food or beverage of choice, because it's a lot of information. It's going to be a lot of stuff. What happened was, a couple of years ago, the district started moving towards having one collective course catalog to make sure that we were encompassing all of the classes that were taught at every single one of our schools. So that's everything. That's choice schools. And I want to make sure I say what choice schools are. Choice schools are smaller schools within the district that are often by lottery or application. And so our course catalog has every single high school course that is offered in all of Lake Washington School District. And what it does is it tells you what school they're offered at. It tells you a course description. It has a little caret drop down that will tell you all of the information about the course. It'll sometimes tell you what is the estimation of homework that is offered. What are you going to learn about? What are the benchmarks? Is this a 1 semester long class? Is this a year-long class? It really will guide you and your student to look at what is offered.
And it will show what graduation requirements it hits and how many
Yep.
credits they get.
Yep, it will show you all of them. We have what are called dual credit, which again, I think is kind of misleading because you don't get dual credit. So remember at the beginning, we were talking about how you need, 4 years of English for graduation and 3 years of math, 3 years of science. And we talked about that CTE, the career and tech education classes. So our career and tech educational classes, they're oftentimes partnered. So you've got like our photography classes.
Mm-hmm.
Most all of our photography classes in all of our high schools are what we call a dual credit class. You don't get credit twice, but they fill the requirement both for an art class and for a CTE class, right? So
engineering classes usually do that too, right?
Yeah, so it's hitting 2 spots. The course catalog will tell you if it's going to be able to meet both of those. And like I said, you don't get credit twice for them. It's just meeting the subject requirement in both places. And it'll also show actually on Skyward. When you go on Skyward and start fiddling around, it will actually show your 4-year course, but it'll show all the classes that your student has taken. If your student is a freshman, it's not going to show anything right now. But if your student's a junior, it's going to show the specific courses that they've taken and how they count.
Okay. Ready for the next slide?
Oh, this is one thing as well. I will say this, the course catalog that is online, this shows every class that is possible to take in the Lake Washington School District. I say it's possible because, and I think we're actually talking about this a little bit more for like graduate or for registering for classes, is that sometimes those classes aren't offered. They might be listed in the course catalog because they have been offered before. But I'll get to that when we start talking about exactly how registration works. But every single course that has been offered is in the course catalog. That does not guarantee that your home high school will be offering it.
So I was looking at the online course catalog. And so, which is all on the LWSD, the Lake Washington School District website. Yep. And if you type in like, let's say Eastlake, and it says course catalog. And if I click on Eastlake, so all that shows up, aren't those just Eastlake classes, or am I wrong about that?
No, it is. Oh, okay. It's so nice and confusing. My apologies for that one. But it actually is. So we and Lake Washington School District do the coolest thing ever. I think that it's really neat. So what we do is back in the day, I remember my registration, you had a very prescribed, this is what is offered. There was no moving from that. Here are the classes that you're taking. There was no flexibility in that. What we do in Lake Washington School District is we actually do registration based on student request. So we're all in the midst of registration right now. We're wrapping it up right now at Juanita. I am going to be at Kamaikan tomorrow. We're doing 8th grades. So we have done registration. We do this and we have to do it early. And I know it's annoying. However, the reason why we do it early in the Lake Washington School District is we gather all of this data of student request. From that student request, we look at what are students wanting to take. Let's say that we've got X number of students that want to take piano. Well, great. What we do is we create that many piano sections. And then from that, we build our master schedule around it. How much room space do we have? Do we have this in our schedule? Can we move this? Do we need to get more pianos? How do we make it possible so that our students are driving what we're offering at our school? Then what we do is we take that number and it drives our hiring. We have to do it early enough so that we can be competitive in hiring highly qualified teachers. So if we do it now and we get all of our numbers, we build our schedule. From our schedule, we then get to have our FTE, our full-time employment, to then hire people. That's what we're driving. So the reason why it gets really, really tricky, if not impossible, to change your student schedule is because we made the schedule based on what you asked.
Yeah.
And so what happens sometimes is, let's say that we are offering, we put it out into the world for our students, 15 electives. We do so many more than that, but I'm just going to make it for the sake of argument here. 15 electives, but the highest numbers are in 8. Okay, well, we have the staffing for those 8. I'm going to run those 8 electives. Those other ones might have to wait until next year. So what we'll do is then we'll offer it out to students next year when we do registration. Holy cow, now our numbers, students' interest is that we can offer 13 of the 15. So then we'll offer the 13. It's based 100% on student interest.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that. I think that's helpful for students and families to hear. Okay, so this is the 4-year planner.
Yes. So 4-year planner, this looks a little bit different. Once upon a time, we had a bunch of little boxes. We'd like check mark off the little boxes. Old school counselors, we really, really like them. Me included. You will see
I like them too.
Yeah, you will see me with my paper and pencil. And to be quite honest, you're going to be hard pressed to find a counselor anywhere that doesn't still really, really hold on to their binder and trust it. But this is awesome. It's used for both counselor and student alike. It's an idea of what might you be interested in for the next 4 years. What I think is so cool about this is it's a working, moving document. I am not holding any of my students to this. The thing that you wanted when you were 14 as a freshman, I hope that it's different when you are 17. I want it to be. I want you to evolve. I want this time in high school to have shifted and molded your interests so that you have more of an idea by the time you're on your way out. So this is a very moving document. This is more for student reference than anything else. We want them to be responsible for their graduation. We want them to have be an active participant in tracking it. So this is posted online. It's also, remember when we talked about the high school and beyond plan? This is a Zello assignment. This is something that we will ask of your students to do that will also be meeting a graduation requirement assignment as well. So it has multi-level, it's helpful, it's awesome, moving document. We use it, students use it, parents use it. Yep. It's awesome, and it's online.
And I agree. I always say the high school time, it's what I call a transformative process. And, you know, exactly what you're saying, like be flexible. Like in 9th grade, you might think you want to do this. And then in 10th grade, you take a class and your brain just explodes with excitement. Like you had no idea this was a thing. And then it changes. And, you know, the biggest thing I would say, and you can tell me if you agree or not, is just certain high school classes do have prerequisites. So that's the thing you do have to a little bit pay attention to, you know, if there's a class that does have a prerequisite before you can take it, to make sure that you've done that. So, but well, yeah, this is not in concrete here. So
totally. And it's listed, if there are any prerequisites for your class, the one that your student's interested in, it's going to be listed in that course catalog. Right. When you do the carrot down, it will immediately list if there is a prerequisite on there.
It's very visible. So yeah, awesome. Okay. All right. So some people were asking about running start, and we're both going to talk about this. So I'll just read this is the definition. Seniors and juniors who qualify may enroll in college level courses at local participating community and technical colleges. The courses taken will earn high school credit and college credit at some state colleges and universities. It's most of them, especially on the West Coast. The Lake Washington School District pays the college tuition for a specified number of credits taken. Students are responsible for fees, books, and transportation. I'm going to go to the next slide. So, and we can talk more about this. But the foundation did a poll of people who've participated in Find Your Fit programs, just to ask them what they'd like to learn about. And the one thing, where there are a lot of things, but one of the main things that we got parent input on was we'd like college to cost less. I said to the foundation, I am not a magician. And again, we'll talk more about the cost of college at College 101. But if you're looking to save some money on college, Running Start is a great way to do it. Do you want me just to go through these and then you can add your stuff, or do you want to do them? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think Running Start's amazing. I think that I have so many students who do Running Start, and it is absolutely amazing. But I do think that there's a profile of a student who is ready for a Running Start. There's very much a profile. You know, just because you qualify when you're a junior doesn't mean you have to do it when you're a junior. You can also do it when you were a senior.
Yep.
And you have to remember that what you're telling both the school and the college that you're going to, the community college, is that you are prepared to act, look, study, work like a college student 2 years before you're ready. So you have to be mindful of that. Like, just because you get an A in a class doesn't mean that you are holistically prepared to be a college student, because that's what you would be doing. You would no longer be taking classes on the high school campus, you would be on a college campus. So you would be with college students. There is partial enrollment, and I'll talk about that in just a second, but I do think that that's probably my biggest word of caution.
Yeah. And I know, you know, again, everybody's different. There are some students who are like, oh, high school, blah, you know, they just don't enjoy the high school environment. And then there are other kids who are like, oh my gosh, I'll be missing out on the jokes that everybody's talking about. I'll be missing the assembly. You know, like, again, no one has to do Running Start. It's just an option. And what it is, so you can't start it till junior year. And the way that it works, if a student's going full-time, so community colleges work on a quarter basis instead of a semester. A quarter is 10 weeks, whereas a semester is 15 weeks. Students would do Running Start for 3 semesters. They'd go in the fall, they'd go winter, and they'd go spring. A 10-week course is the equivalent of 1 year of high school. So to earn your English requirement for junior year, you would take 1 English class. That's 10 weeks. As Taylor said, students can go part-time or full-time. Students who go full-time starting in junior year, they can earn an associate degree, which is 90 college credits. Students still apply as freshmen to 4-year colleges. You still go through the exact same process. And keep in mind, and what happens then is, once, let's say you decide to go to Western Washington University after you graduate and you've got this your associate's degree, 90 credits, you send your transcript over, your college transcript over to Western, and they go through, and in most cases, they're going to accept all the credits, but it could be that a student might be a sophomore, second semester, whatever, but those grades are part of your college transcript then. So let's say you're applying to medical, you want to apply to medical school, but you got all, maybe you didn't do all that great in your Running Start classes. That can impact you because it's part of your college transcript. And it's, as I said, it's a great way to save on the cost of college, because you can get up to 2 years paid for.
So yeah, I mean, I would add, so here's where it gets a little bit dicey is, so our school, Lake Washington School District, most high schools, we run on a semester, right? We have semester 1, we have semester 2. And where it gets tricky is all of the colleges in our area that we access Running Start from, they are on quarters, like Mary Pat was saying. So for example, fall quarter, it doesn't start until the end of September.
Right.
So for like my students who are Running Start students, they're no longer taking any classes at the high school. So their peers are starting school right after Labor Day, and they still have 3 weeks before they start. They'll take, the average student full-time is 15 credits. What that equates to is 3 classes. So if your student is somebody who has a job, cool, you've got lots of time. But if your student doesn't, your student now has a lot of time on their hands. So, yep, so just be prepared for that one. You have to meet with your high school counselor. You're still enrolled in the Lake Washington School District. You still have your home high school. You meet with your counselor every single quarter to go over what are your graduation requirements. We give you advice on what classes to take. We tell you, here's what you need for graduation. Here's the classes I think you should take. I hope your fair student listens. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So that part is a little bit different. Like I said, is you're asking your student to be a college student before they typically would. I will say also, though, there's a ton of Running Start students in our area. So a lot of the classes that our students are accessing, there is 100% going to be other Running Start students who are there, especially in classes like English 101. They're going to see a lot of Running Start students in those very beginning courses. Like Mary Pat had said, one class like that English 101, let's say that your student ends up taking that for fall quarter. Well, that one class is all of the credits you need for your entire English 11. So that would be your English 11 and you're done. So when we talk about earning your AA degree at the same time, your AA degree is, your 2-year degree of the 4 for college. And at the end of this, the AA degree, you get a certification. But that AA degree is actually being tracked by the college and by the student. It's not by your high school counselor. So it does take a fair amount of responsibility by your student to track their AA degree requirements in order for them to get that. They would still apply, like she was saying, like a normal freshman. What happens though is, like I told you, that semester and quarter, they don't align. So while you graduate, we graduate our students like the first week of June. They're not done. The Running Start students aren't done until the end of June, because that's when their quarter is done. So they will have to wait and receive their diploma when we get their final grades from Running Start. What they would do is take that AA certificate, give that to the college that they go to. They'll switch their enrollment from a freshman to a junior if they meet their AA requirements. The one thing I was telling Mary Pat about is stuff that I didn't foresee in my decade of doing this. There's been some scenarios where I had the sweetest student in the world. She knew she wanted to be a teacher. She's always wanted to be a teacher. And gosh, she is the best stinking teacher ever. She started Running Start when she was a junior, and she got her AA degree. She transferred to Western, and she went to Western. She finished up 3 years at Western, because Western's teaching program is 2 years of your undergrad and 1 year for your master's. So she graduated and she was 21. She got her first job in a high school in a senior English class. And I remember her calling me the first week, and she goes, I don't think I can do this because these kids are only 2 years younger than I am. So it was this unforeseen thing that we didn't even think about. Like, oh yeah, because you started 2 years earlier, you're 2 years younger than your peers. So there's just things that you want to think about if your end game is, if you know your end game, right? Yeah. I mean, I wish I would have done Running Start. I had to be in my master's program, 2 of them, for a very long time. It would have been great to have 2 years for free.
Yeah. Or if you're thinking about medical school, it could be a great cut it
if
back.
If you know that you're going to be in school for a long time, boy, is it a wonderful, wonderful option. The college will put you on academic probation. If you do not make a 2.0 or higher for 2 months consecutively, they will put you on academic probation and push you back to your home school. So just a heads up, you do have to make positive academic progress.
Okay. All right. And let's talk about WANIC. Did you have something else to say? I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. The last thing I wanted to say about Running Start, the part-time versus full-time.
Oh, yeah.
Here's why it's really hard.
It is hard.
Oh my God. It is, I do not recommend, it's not for the faint of heart. It can happen, but it is a logistical nightmare. And here's why, because we are on semesters,
it's the breaks,
on quarters. And then you have to imagine that for the Running Start classes, they change every quarter. So you're changing classes at Running Start 3 times throughout the year. They won't be offered the same day, the same time, but you still have to honor the classes that are at the home high school that are on a different schedule, potentially a block schedule. It is just trying to do the matrix of figuring out what classes are offered to do this. I have students who start part-time, and by winter quarter, they're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just going full-time. It is so hard to maintain. And then for transportation. So, and
then also the breaks are different.
Yeah.
Spring breaks won't be at the same time. And again, I've had students who do it and they seem to handle it okay. But if part of the, of the benefit of Running Start is having that more flexible schedule, and so again, if it was me, I would do full-time, but obviously
100%.
students can do whatever they
Yep.
want to do. So, all right, let's talk about WANIC because I want to make sure we get some questions here.
Yep. Sorry about that.
Okay, so WANIC stands for the Washington Network of Innovative Careers. And there's the WANIC Skill Center, which is actually located in the Lake Washington Institute of Technology, but they offer high quality, free technical and professional training for high school juniors and seniors. There's year-long programs, which is what we're really going to talk about. I mentioned that they can be at the Lake Washington Institute of Technology, which is over in Kirkland, but there are other locations. Like I think Issaquah High School does the sports medicine one, and there's different locations. And of course, or I shouldn't say, many of you may be familiar with WANIC because they do offer those fabulous 3-week summer classes, but this is different. We're talking about the full year ones, and these are what are offered, and they really have phenomenal programs. But the way it works, and Taylor, you can correct me if I'm wrong on here, but students, they have to pick, do they want to do the morning WANIC or the afternoon WANIC? And then they have to physically leave their high school in most cases, unless let's say they're at Issaquah High School and they're doing the sports medicine one, but they have to physically get to those other locations, which can be difficult for students. But what do you want to say about the programs?
Yeah, I mean, they're wonderful. I mean, so both WANIC and Running Start you can access as a junior. Both of them you would probably start doing questions, applications, looking into in late spring, so March, April. What's super neat about them is really, it's like, again, it's the end game, right? I had a very, very awesome student who wanted to go into nursing, but she knew it was going to be hard for her to afford it. And so she wanted to become a nurse's assistant, and she could do that through WANIC. She became a nurse's assistant by doing WANIC, and then she was a nurse's assistant the entire time during nursing school and paid off her school at the same time. So you can get really strategic and so like unparalleled experience. We have tons of students who access the fire and EMT, and they actually go out to North Bend and they do fire and safety rescue, and they also train them for Eastern Washington fires. And so it's really, really neat. They're experiential learning. You have a half day with your core classes at your home high school. And then you will spend the other half of your day either at LW Tech or on site, wherever that might be. You have to provide your own transportation. So that is a little bit tricky, but not a ridiculous barrier. There's lots of things that we can do. And so it's an awesome way to get experience. You earn wonderful credit. We were talking about the grad pathway. WANIC is an immediate grad pathway meeting. So if you do WANIC for a year, you meet your grad pathway. And if you can notice also, we do DigiPen as well. The DigiPen campus that is right off of Willows. So we'll have students who go down there and do all sorts of really cool DigiPen. I mean, it's a great opportunity. It does depend on when it's offered. Some are offered only in the morning classes. So it would be a morning block that is maybe like 7:30 to noon. And then your counselor has to figure out how to put all your core classes in the afternoon.
Is it typically, so if a student was doing WANIC, would it typically be 3 classes they would be taking at their home high school?
Totally depends.
Okay.
It's really dependent on location, because if you have to drive further, that's going to impact whether or not how many classes you can take. What's really neat also is a lot of these programs, they have a component that is CTE, but then some of them will also have a math credit that is associated with it. Some of them will also have science credits.
Yes, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. So for like medical careers, you have got like a credit of science that's in there while simultaneously doing your CTE. So you will graduate on time. It's not making it impossible for you to get the credits that you need for graduation. More information, go to your college and career center. That's huge. Yeah,
and if you just type in WANIC, you'll go to the WANIC page, and like they have open houses and programs so that you can learn about the different programs and all that. So very cool. Okay. So I'm going to try to keep, because we're almost at 8:30 and I do want to answer questions too, but
Yep.
okay. So there are some students in middle school take high school level classes. In math, it's algebra and geometry, and then foreign language that's taken. So why don't you talk about the moving it to the whole process with the transcript?
Yeah. So if your student ends up taking algebra or geometry in middle school, no matter what, they are automatically moved on to your high school transcript. That's
new.
That's new. It happened.
It didn't used to be that way.
It happened 2 years ago. They made that shift. So all of them roll up now. You used to have to fill out a form in order to get them rolled up. Now, all high school level courses that are taken in middle school automatically go on your transcript. You have to fill out a waiver from your counselor in high school. Not now. You need to wait until your student is in high school. If you do not want it on your student's transcript.
The reason why you might not want it is if your grade negatively impacts your GPA. That would be why.
Oh yeah. And there's a number of things. Like I was just talking to a student last week who was like, hey, I love Spanish and I'm doing perfectly fine, but I want to take it again when I'm a freshman so that I get a better foundation. Will it show up on my transcript twice? And I was like, it'll automatically roll up. But when you come to high school, in October, let me know. I'll give you the form. We'll take it and have it removed from your transcript. And your grades from your freshman year Spanish 1 will be put on there and you'll be good to go. So there's a lot of reasons why you might want it. There's a lot of reasons why you might not want it. But you do have to fill out the form once you are in high school. Once you fill out that form and those grades have been put on, or pardon me, taken off, you cannot undo it. It is a legal document. So you can't decide, I want those grades off, and then go, oh, hold on, wait, but I want them back on. Once it's done, it's done. We cannot alter legal documents any longer. It has to be that one and done. So if you want to hold off and you want to wait till junior year and decide, okay, wait, now I want that one off, cool, that's fine too.
But if you can't take off, let's say you took geometry, you can't take off one semester in geometry. It's all geometry. You can't pick and
you also can't decide like, ooh, I really liked that one grade from this one and this one grade from that one. It's an all or nothing situation. It all goes on or it all goes off.
Oh, so like if you took algebra and geometry, and let's say you didn't like your geometry grade, if you take it off, algebra goes off too?
No.
Oh, okay.
Only geometry. But here's where it gets a little bit dicey. Are you ready for this? And you tell me, Mary Pat. Colleges know that it goes algebra, geometry, algebra 2. And if you have put on your 7th grade for algebra, and then you have nothing for 8th grade, and then you have algebra 2, if I was a college, I would look at your transcript and say, did you take geometry, or was your geometry grade so bad that you didn't want it on here?
Right. Yeah.
So, I don't know.
But I mean, colleges do know that, students like to,
Now, if your student though, let's say that your student is in like a world language right now as an 8th grader, and then as a 9th grader, they take Spanish 2, your Spanish 1 will automatically come up and be on the transcript. And then let's say that they've decided, I don't want to take Spanish 3. Okay, fine. You've met your graduation requirement. They're both on the transcript. So you are set and good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and when it comes to foreign language, it needs to be the same foreign language. Sometimes students think, I didn't like Spanish, so I'm going to try French next year. It's got to be 2 years of the same foreign language.
Yes.
Or ASL and, whatever. Okay. So real quick, I want to do a caution about math. I talk to a lot of students. I go onto the parenting Facebook page here in the district and all this. There's a lot of talk about trying to advance, going, they've got kids who are talking about taking AP calculus in sophomore year, which in my opinion is crazy. So there is a math curriculum. And as I said earlier, colleges just look to see what is the curriculum of the high school. Highly selective schools in the STEM, like, MIT and Harvey Mudd and schools like that, they they were like, we want seniors to take AP Calculus BC. That's where they want them to be. And I think at pretty much all of our high schools, that is like the highest math that you can typically take. The colleges want to teach students the multivariable calculus, linear algebra, all that stuff that I don't even understand, quite frankly, what it is. It's beyond my math capability. But, you know, and I'll hear people say, oh, my child's going to skip algebra too. Please don't skip. One of the things, in my opinion, that remote learning taught us is how foundational math is. And I always say math was probably the one class that didn't translate super well to remote learning. And I saw a lot of kids really struggle with math. It's foundational, and trying to cram a year's worth of math in a summer, and all, just follow the math. Use your time for other things. Colleges are not expecting it. They don't want it. If a student, you know, sometimes kids think, oh, if I take Calc AB in sophomore year, I'm done with math. No, you're not. And if you stop BC in junior year, yes, you can take stats, but stats is a math-based class. It's not a math class. And then you might have a 1.5 year gap before you're taking calculus again. And that can be hard on. So just please don't do it. Please, anything you want to say before we go on to the last
Yeah, I mean, over the years, I mean, I've seen it done in just about every possible creative, wonky way you would ever think you could see it. And 9 times out of 10, the best way with the most learning and the most support moving on for the next sequence is taking it at the high school for the full year. To try and cram pack stuff over the summer, a year's worth of school in 8 weeks.
What a miserable way to spend the summer, in my opinion.
Oh my God, we're talking about kids, like they're kids. Like, I don't know. I mean, I've seen it be done successfully, but not as many as I've seen it not done successfully.
Yeah.
So, you know, just tread with caution.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
All right. What about retaking classes? And I think you already talked about why it's so difficult to change a schedule, but if you want to refresh.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, yeah, it's hard. The reason why it's hard is because we honor what your student has asked for, which is why we give them a good amount of time to look over, to make sure, to submit it, to double check. We do those things in order to make sure that they are saying, yeah, I've done my homework. I've done the work to show this is what I want to be taking. There's a lot of schools that have different windows of how long you can submit a schedule change request, or if you can't at all, or we do all the schedule changes at the beginning of the school year. It's a mixed bag, to be quite honest. But I will say we can all universally, collectively say it is really hard to change your schedule, and it is because it's student driven. So if you've asked for that class, we are saying, okay, great, we will try and give it to you. Now, sometimes students don't get that class, and just imagine what it is like, the algorithm to make it possible for, you know, I mean, at LW, we have what, 2,100 students. And so it would be so difficult to get every single student getting exactly what they want. And it gets harder and harder as they get seniors because, you know, like, how many sections of AP Chem do we actually offer? Well, usually only 2, but if we have more students who want it, but oh, by the way, it's only offered at the exact same time as band, and you're unwilling to give up band, we get in this weird, tricky spot where it's like Sophie's choice. Like, I can't tell you which to pick here, but like, here we are. So it's not ever because a counselor doesn't want to. I promise you, I would love nothing more than to give you exactly what you want.
And then what about, so when I say retaking classes, that, let's say a student took a class and they got a D, okay?
Yeah.
And they're like, and students are always surprised when I'll say, oh, have you thought about retaking that, you know? How does, I know how the process works, but can you explain how students, if they do want to retake, what their options are, how they go about getting permission, because permission is very important. And
well, I mean, you can retake a class if you want to. You will not get dual credit for it. You cannot get credit for taking the same class twice. So, nor can we ever, like I said before, we can't alter your transcript. It's a legal document, so we can't change it. So let's say that you got a D in Spanish 1 and you want to take it over again. And let's say you got a C and a D. We know that Spanish is tricky if you don't have a good solid world language is tricky if you don't have a solid foundation. You can say, I'd like to take it again next year. Great, register for Spanish 1 again and take it next year. What happens is those C's and D's are still on your transcript, but the credit that is attached to it is dropped, which means that that C and D is no longer calculated in your GPA. The new grades from the class being retaken, those are calculated in your GPA.
And I just want to say from a college standpoint, because students always go, but they'll see it. I'm like, yeah. And they go, wow, look at that kid. My son had to retake first semester of geometry because he did it on BYU and he didn't realize his grade counted and all this stuff, and he didn't do very well. But it was fine. Like, and there's a spot on college applications where you can explain circumstances like that. And again, it's actually, I actually think colleges are very impressed that a student will take the time to improve and retake a class.
Yeah, life happens. People are not unreasonable. Colleges are not unreasonable. Life happens.
Right.
But if you do end up taking that, let's say that you end up taking the class and you're doing it like over the summer, maybe with BYU. So if that's the case, you have to get district paperwork completed before you register for the class. The reason is because as counselors, we actually have to make sure that OSPI approves it.
We tell people what OSPI stands for.
Oh yeah, it's the Office of Student and okay. Oh, like I need to like write it down. It's the State Education Board. So it's the Office of Student and Superintendent. Yeah. Anyways,
Instruction.
Thank you. Student instruction. I'm like, OSPI. Chris Reichdahl. So OSPI though is the state's regulating whether or not these online, I mean, anybody can start an online academy. And so they're making sure that it's quality education, that it's
accredited,
teaching, and it's an accredited institution. So there is paperwork that your counselor would give you. You have to fill it out. You've got to attach some stuff to it. You give it back to the counselor. The counselor will review it, gives it to the principal. Principal has to approve it. From there, you get a yes or no that you can take the class. Once the class is completed, you have to submit a transcript, an official transcript from that online class. Or wherever else it is that you took it. Once that transcript comes to the counselor, our registrar will vet it and put it onto the transcript. Now, here's the tricky part. It has to go on your transcript. If you take that class, it will no matter what go on your transcript. Again, it's a legal document. If you're taking a class, you have to do that. This district also has a maximum of 3 outside credits. You cannot take more than 3 credits outside of the Lake Washington School District and have them submitted to be put on your transcript for credit.
And the other thing I want to say, sometimes kids will be like, oh my gosh, I got a B, I need to retake the class. So colleges, and I've had kids retake it. And I'm like, well, what you just did is worthless, because some colleges will allow a C to be replaced, but other colleges, it has to be a D or lower. Even if the student retakes it, they're like, yeah, we don't count that. So don't be, there's nothing wrong with a B, everybody. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah. And it's also really hard. If your student is an 8th grader and going into 9th grader or into 9th grade, it gets in a really, really weird spot, because I know that you want to submit your paperwork in order to do it over the summer. However, please don't reach out to your high school counselor. It's really hard. We're already supporting 4 grades. We can't now add 8th grade as well. I mean, that's 5 grades, and that's not an easy feat. So work with your middle school counselor, please. They are so qualified and they know exactly what to do. So no worries. If you're trying to take a class so that you can skip a level of math, like you're doing it over the summer so that you can skip, no matter what, your student has to register for the next sequence of math. We will only make the switch once we have a final transcript in hand. of like an official transcript that says so-and-so has completed this math, and then it's subject to availability. Again, we build the schedule based on student request. So if your student asks for this class, if it's available, then we'll put them in then.
Okay. So we're gonna see what questions we haven't answered. It is a little after 8:30. Apologize. I thought we'd be done in an hour, but
I mean, there's just so much to say. You know what, Mary Pat, I have one thing I wanted to add that I completely forgot to add in my GPA when we were talking about GPA. Lake Washington School District is now a part of a program in Washington State where it is the direct entry for college. What that means is that we have a understanding with Washington State colleges where if your student is earning a 3.0 or higher, they have direct entry into Western Washington University, Eastern Washington University, Evergreen State, Wazoo, Central Washington University. So the state schools, UW is not in the contract.
Okay.
But if you have a 3.0 or higher, you have a direct entry into those schools, which for a lot of my students is like a.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're great schools.
Yep.
They're
Great schools.
So real quick before we look at questions,
Okay.
I'm doing a College 101 on February 7th from 6:30 to 8:30. It's going to be a real deep dive. It's 2 hours. We're doing a hybrid, which I'm excited. It's going to be in person at the Lake Washington School District Resource Center, and it's also going to be on Zoom. This will be interesting. I've never done this, but they say this can be done. But it will not be recorded. Just so just you have to watch it, be there live. And these are the different topics. And then Find Your Fit. There's all sorts of webinars on demand. I do counselor is in sessions where I give families 10-minute one-on-one sessions to ask me any questions. Follow us if you got questions. I am a resource in the community. I'm always happy to answer any questions that I can. Just email me at findyourfit@lwsf.org. Again, this has been recorded. You will receive the PowerPoint presentation. The recording, it won't be sent out for a couple days though, just so you know, it takes the staff a little bit to do this. So, all right, let's see what kind of questions we might have here.
This one's a good one. It's talking about an N grade in a core class.
Okay.
So an N is the new F. I mean, it's a no credit. We don't do Fs anymore. No credit is what our district does. We have Ns. And what that does, it doesn't impact your GPA, but it does mean that you don't have credit for that class. So if it's a core class, you do have to retake it in order to meet your graduation requirement. For students who have attempted a core class, they've attempted it and maybe not earned credit, they are eligible for summer school. Our summer school is specifically for students that have not earned credit in a course. It's not for a student who just wants to take it. So that's what an N is, and summer school is available. Usually that comes out at around May.
Yeah. There's so many questions. So when someone asked, I was talking about the fact that the Lake Washington School District does not do A minuses. So a student goes from an A, which means, so if you look at the transcript, it says like 100 to 90 is an A, right? Isn't that what it says, Taylor? I look at transcripts all the time.
Put it on the ground. Hold on.
Okay, but anyways, so in our district, they just don't do A minuses. So a B plus is a 3.3 GPA. That's what a B plus is. So if a student, drops below a 90, it's a B plus. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But for a lot of kids, if they paid attention, they may be able to keep it in the A grade because, and it is like I said, it's a 0.7 drop in GPA. Other districts like Bellevue, they don't do pluses or minuses in their grades. They just do an A is a 4, a B is a 3, and they just do it like that. So I can't tell you what the rationale is, but that's just the way it is.
I do know that the reason, well, not the reason, but the push for it to change, which preceded me, so it was before 2012, was It was parents pushed for it.
Okay. Okay. So somebody asked, and I don't know the answer to this because my own kids were never musical. It says, question from an incoming ninth grader. How do students sign up for band, or should they prioritize other elective subjects for credits? Hey, I'm like, if you're into music, do band, have fun. But I don't know. I think you just sign up for it, don't you? As part of your
100%.
schedule? Yeah.
Yep.
Please, we need musicians. That's a really
Oh,
important one.
100%.
Can we retake Spanish 1 and 2 in 9th and 10th grade? And I'm assuming that, I'm assuming that means I take it 7th and 8th grade. Yeah, of course you can. Student takes, okay.
It's offered 7th grade.
Is it? I have no idea.
I don't believe that it is.
I don't think it is either. I don't, it
But
just
you can retake it. If
Yeah.
your student would like to retake it, sure.
It says, okay, if my student takes one language in middle school, 8th grade, and then does 9th grade for the 2 credits, and then changes to a new language, let's say they decide to do Mandarin,
Okay.
how would that count?
It'll be an elective credit.
It'll be an elective credit. It doesn't, but like, let's say they are applying to UW Seattle and they're hoping that meets the 3 foreign language recommended. It doesn't, because it's 2 different languages.
And that's not exclusive to UW Seattle.
No.
Washington School District's policy, you have to take 2 of a consecutive language. So no matter what, you have to take 2 of a consecutive language.
Someone was asking, because I said something about $80,000 a year. Yes, that's what I said, but attend the College 101. I'm not really going to talk about that. What if Algebra 1 and Geometry has a C? Well, if you took it in middle school and you didn't want that on your transcript, you can take it off. There's nothing wrong with that. Colleges, like, so if Algebra 2 is your 9th grade math class, as we said, colleges know there is a math path, and that, that they know that there are colleges, this tends to be like the California colleges, they don't care about the grade, but they may say, show us your the high school classes you took in middle school. So if you took Spanish or if you took geometry, you show it. They don't want to know the grades. They just want to know that you took it. Again, it depends on the college. So Taylor, again, someone was asking about taking online PE and health. Do you want to talk about that in the summertime? Do you want to talk about that? On the district website, there are PE options, right? It's pretty
I mean, there's one PE option. I don't know. I mean, here's the deal. Why wouldn't your student take it?
Well, that's what I say. No one skips English, or skips science. Take walking and yoga. It's very meditative. It's a great class.
Well, and on top of that, I was like, I mean, I'm a very research-based person. I like, show me the data. Okay. Every single piece of data shows that if your student is moving their bodies, they are more able to receive information and retain it than if they are not. So to me, if you have the opportunity to move your body within the day, why on earth would you not?
Yeah. So somebody was asking about community, I'm assuming you mean community service hours. It's not required in our district. Again, not saying people can't do things in the community, but that's not a graduation requirement.
Just raise nice people who want to serve their community. Yeah.
Okay. Somebody wrote, my child entered the district in 9th grade. How is Washington State history handled?
Beautiful.
Children seem to do this in middle school.
Yeah, they do. They actually take it second semester of their 8th grade year. So no worries. If your student ended up taking it taking some sort of state, so let's say you came from Tennessee. If they took Tennessee State history, if you have your middle school counselor from Tennessee email and say, hey, so-and-so took Tennessee State history, great, meet your requirement. If you don't have that, there's opportunities to take Washington State history between grades 9 through 12. It counts as a social studies credit, doesn't count against you in any way whatsoever. So your student will meet that graduation requirement. Don't you worry, we got you covered.
Okay, somebody asked, I'll answer this one. what do colleges look at if you transfer schools? And I think they're asking about high school. So if a student has, and again, it depends, but typically if a student has completed 1 full year of college at the University of Washington or Western, which uses quarters, it's 45 credits earned. If it's a semester school like Washington State, it would be 30 credits. Typically, once a student has completed a full year, they won't ask about high school. Again, it can depend, but typically once you've completed 1 full year, they just look at the college stuff. So it says if your course selection in school changes since you did the selection, what course list is sent to colleges? I don't know if that's asking on the college application, because I know I tell my students to always communicate with their colleges. Like if let's say a student has always done well, and then all of a sudden senior year, they got a C- in math. Oh, you should let the college, you should be communicating that with the colleges, because they don't like surprises. They don't like surprises at all. But I don't know if they're asking about like on your end, Taylor, with the
I don't know. I would assume that you're meaning this, but I don't want to make assumptions. And by that, like, you should be communicating, your student should be communicating with colleges. You as the parent should not be calling.
Oh, absolutely.
Your student is already in college, has been accepted. Do not call them. Your student needs to. It is like an immediate, like, huh? Whose mom's calling?
Yeah.
No.
Are you ready for college if your mommy's calling?
Oh God.
Yeah. So somebody was asking.
But I would say,
but
if your senior schedule changes, that's what I'm going to assume, is that like your schedule changes. How do you communicate that with them? I mean, you can give them a call, you can let them know, or don't worry. I mean, if your kid is applying on Common App, your counselor is uploading their second semester schedule and also has to give them a heads up if their schedule has changed. So no matter what, they will see it. It will be coming through.
But when in doubt, because colleges actually respect that when the student reaches out and is like, oh, I'm so sorry, I've had some mental health issues, something was going on in my family, my grades went, like, just let them know. Someone asked, what is calculus AB versus BC? So in calculus, the AB is what you take first. BC is the secondary class, and it's a lot of it is review of what you learned in the first year.
Second section.
Let's see. What happens in case of medical emergencies? I'm wondering if they mean with classes. I don't know what the question means. Like maybe with grades. So okay, actually maybe I do know. I've had situations where students have had some sort of a medical emergency. Maybe they miss school for a month and their grade, maybe they have what would you get, a W? Is that like maybe you had to withdraw, or maybe your grade just went down? Again, there is a spot on college applications that allow students to explain situations. I think that's what they're asking about.
And counselors will too. I mean, the likelihood of some sort of medical emergency happening and your counselor not knowing is pretty slim, or I hope it is. And so if we're filling out stuff on your Common App, we might even ask you, hey, what are you disclosing? Is there something that you'd like me to put in here? There's places for us to put comments to talk about life happening to you. That's totally appropriate.
So somebody asked about how much more work is required in an advanced placement class AP versus regular. Hopefully it says that in the course catalog. Most of the high schools do have AP curriculum nights where they kind of, don't they, Taylor, where they talk about the different offerings. We forgot to say this, if you're picking classes, sometimes students aren't sure, should they take the AP or should they take the regular? And I always tell my students, talk to your teacher, find out, because teachers are great and they might be like, oh, you're ready for this, or, no, I think you might do better in the regular, what do you have to say for that?
I mean, I think teachers are number one. Here's the tricky part is prepare your student to accept and receive what your teacher says. I think that's a really different thing, is if you're asking them, they'll be honest. And if I mean, they know your students writing best. They know your students performance best. So if your teacher says, I don't think this is the best option for you, hear that.
Yeah.
It's not because you are not good. It's, I just don't know if this is the class for you. It's
Right.
just
And again,
like
follow your
anything else.
interest.
Yeah.
Follow your interest. So
Yeah.
somebody, I'm afraid to even answer this one, but somebody was asking if their student goes to ICS, which is one of the choice schools,
Mhm.
and they want to go into more of the STEM field, and ICS is considered more of a humanities, like I said, what I said earlier, if it's the right fit, if your child looks at the curriculum, will make friends, will thrive. Again, colleges, I've had students who attended ICS who get into UW computer science, which is selective, and it's they look at what the student did with what was offered. So if ICS is the right school for your child, have them go there. But if it's not the right school, have them go to the regular school. There's so many options. Let's see. So okay, this is why I hate talking about weighted GPA. We do not, somebody asked if there's an honors class where a student can get a 4.5 and get an A, and I'm not laughing at you, but we don't weight. So your student can never get a 4.5 in the Lake Washington School District or any of the public school districts in Washington, because we don't weight GPA. An A is an A. Again, if colleges, if they will go through and recalculate and weight, don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about it. What is a passing grade? Isn't it a D?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we get letters of rec from middle school teachers? No, not as teacher recommendations. Again, College 101, I'll go into greater detail. However, a middle school teacher could be used for what's called an outside recommender. So that's possible, but not for a high school teacher recommendation. Does dual credit mean that a student can get credits for that course both from high school and college? Yes, that's what dual credit means, right?
Yep. And it's just, there's on the course catalog, it will tell you whether or not they are dual credit classes.
It says on world language, how important are 3 or 4 credits for a kid who may be interested in STEM and wants to get into selective college? Again, go to that. You'll see it on the slide when you get the recording in a couple days. Go to that college data website, see what the college recommends. If a college is happy with 2 credits, they're happy with 2 credits. A lot of the more selective colleges, and the term selective means too many qualified students applying for too few of spots. And we'll talk about this in College 101. They like to see global citizens, and they typically do like to see more foreign language, typically. So someone asked if you're doing the course selection at Kamayakin tomorrow.
I will be there.
Okay.
We'll just be helping support registration.
What if our child is assigned a language or elective they did not list as a choice?
Yep, that totally happens. And I wish that it didn't, but you're going to be hard pressed to find any place that doesn't happen, especially like even in college, if classes are full, you can't get into it, right? So it does happen, unfortunately. I hope it doesn't happen consistently all the time. But it does happen. Stuff conflicts.
So someone asked about deadlines for submitting courses. Is it possibility of not getting courses? I mean, I think you just have to do it by the deadline, right?
Yeah.
The different schools have different deadlines. Unfortunately, I don't know what they all are.
Running Start are this week.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yep. So Running Start is alongside high school. Yes. With Running Start, a student's number one objective is to fulfill high school graduation requirements. And then they also get college credits. They can earn up to an associate's degree. Is it too late to start Running Start in senior year? No. And in fact, I just saw, I follow Eastlake on Instagram, and I'm sure all the different schools, but like what I think what they were saying, and Taylor, you can correct it, but they said, if you're thinking about Running Start, you still pick your normal high school classes. Then there's a Running Start meeting that you have to go to. And then if you go, ooh, this is for me, then you go and you meet with your counselor and you do that. So no, it's not too late to do Running Start. It's usually in May or March, I think, that the meetings are.
Usually they are. Some schools have them. Some schools don't have Running Start meetings. It doesn't mean that they're getting different information from the students that are. All schools have Running Start tabs on their website. So if you go to counseling, they will have Running Start and has very specific steps to enroll.
Okay.
I will tell you, we treat you like college kids. The second that you tell me that you are going to be a college kid, I treat you like a college kid. I'm not going to hound you. I'm not going to beg you for paperwork. And you're not on you're not on campus anymore. So just a heads up, like be prepared to check your email every day. And
okay, so somebody asked, if a student does Running Start, how will they be treated at colleges outside of the state of Washington? So in the West, and you can always, this is a question you can always ask a college. You can say, you know, how do you treat dual enrollment? But most colleges, particularly West Coast, they're fine with it. They accept it. If you go to UW's website, they're like, we love Running Start. You know, it's great. We respect it. So, but it's just a question you should ask. I mean, it is possible that, I don't know, if you go to some school in, I don't know, Vermont, maybe they go, we don't understand what this is. But
I've never
it's just one of those things that somebody to be here, I hear like, oh, it's possible. Just ask the question, you know, how do you handle Running Start? And some students, you know, like doing Running Start, maybe they don't want to get out of college earlier, but maybe they'll be able to get a dual degree. They'll major in 2 things because they've got these other credits. So that can be great.
One thing to be a little bit cautious of is if you have your AA degree, that 2-year degree, and you earn that for Running Start, it's set in stone. There's no movement on it. It's done. It's like your high school diploma. There's no ungraduating. It's done, right?
Right.
So that's the same with the AA degree. So the AA degree, if you get your AA degree, it transfers anywhere in the United States.
Right.
Anywhere. If you have under your AA degree, under those 45 credits, 90. Colleges. 90 I'm so sorry, 90. Pardon me. If you have under those credits, colleges can pick and choose which ones they accept for college credit, not for college acceptance, for college credit.
Right.
And so, you know,
Yeah. And they actually have, well, I was going to talk about direct transfer agreements. I'm not going to do that because it's crazy. So someone asked the question, if a student does Running Start, earns their associate's degree, are they considered a transfer student? No, they have to apply as a freshman. And then once they're admitted and then their transcript comes over, then they're considered whatever level they are. What are the hours for part-time versus full-time Running Start? My understanding is my students who've done part-time, they typically do 3 regular classes at their high school, and then each quarter they take one Running Start class. Is that typically what you see, Taylor?
I see everything.
Okay.
I literally see all the possible combinations you could even think about. Okay.
So and I see this question come up on the Facebook page, the CTE dual credit program related to Running Start. You know, like, and I actually don't think it's with Running Start. Isn't there like some CTE credits like photography or something like that, that students can pay like a credit fee so that it shows up on their community, like on a community college transcript? Is that?
Yes, it formerly was called Tech Prep. And so technology preparation, I believe, is what, I mean, but it used to be called Tech Prep. But there are selective classes that you can, exactly what you said, you pay like a nominal fee.
Like $50 or something, isn't it? Like,
yeah, I mean, I've also seen, like, we had, Lake Washington High School had, they still have UW comp. Yeah. And the fee is significantly more, right, to get a UW transcript. So it can be any kind of fee, but what it does would give you college credit as well. You have to pay that fee. But that's going to be in the course catalog as well. That will tell you exactly those. Right. And, you know, and it might be that you get 1 credit, you know, I mean, like, it's not, it's, you know, it's fine to do it, but it's not, I don't think it's going to make a big difference in a student's college credits total. There's some classes that give significant more. I mean, and if you, and I mean, if you're doing classes, like, for instance, let's say that you're taking some dual like tech prep type classes, but then you're also doing Running Start, or if you're also doing some specific for WANIC over the, I mean, you can find yourself with a fair amount of.
Oh, yes, if you do, yeah, if you do the WANIC and Running Start.
All of them kind of lumped together, and yeah.
So somebody asked if a student is in a choice school,
Okay.
can they do something like Running Start? So my understanding is students at choice schools, if they decide they can't do, I don't think they can do part-time Running Start. I don't think that's an option. But if they go to Running Start, they're no longer at the choice school and they go back to their home school. That's my understanding. Am I accurate?
Well, unless it's changed. Okay, so when I was at LW, we had all students from ICS that were within our boundary. You have to go back to your home school. What is your neighborhood school to access Running Start?
Right.
And we had some students who would, I don't even remember. I don't know if they took a couple with ICS, maybe they didn't.
I
don't know. I don't know if they can. I don't know. That is a question that you know what? I actually don't think that that's the case, because I do know for Cambridge, you cannot do Running Start.
Right. See, I think if it's at a choice,
I think you
do Running Start,
your spot.
Yeah, you've given up your spot. I think so too, but again, there's always questions we don't know the answers to.
Yeah, I think you say no thanks to your spot.
Yeah. So someone said, can you do full-time Running Start junior year and then switch to part-time senior year? Yeah, sure, you can do that. Does Running Start look favorable? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, they don't have any, it's college level classes. When will applications for summer WANIC programs begin? They usually come out in April. And it is a lottery based for the classes. That's for the summer classes. Are Running Start or WANIC offered in the summer? Well, the WANIC classes are, and my understanding, I didn't know, I learned this like, I don't know, a year ago. I guess you can do Running Start in the summer now.
You can, however, it's like during the school year, anything that's over 15 credits, you are financially responsible.
Okay.
The state pays for up to 15 credits. It's the same for summer. Since summer school doesn't, like our normal public school doesn't run over the summer, you have to pay for summer quarter if you want to do that for running.
But you can do it
if
you
can take classes. Totally fine. There's like a form that is very less official-esque that your counselor has to sign for summer quarter, and all it's doing is letting the college know that you're choosing to do that, so that they send us a transcript. That's the only thing that it's doing. But the state will not pay for summer school. In Running Start.
My son is getting a good grade in geometry, but in Algebra 1 he had a BC. Is this a concern? Do we need to retake it? No, you don't need to retake it, not at all. Again, I don't know when he took it, if he took it in middle school or if he took it in high school, but there's nothing wrong with a B or a C. It's a grade. I mean, and as I said, a lot of colleges, even if the student were to retake it, they wouldn't accept it. Again, it depends on the college. So how soon do we need to file the waiver? I think that means about your waiver, maybe for grades, the middle school waiver.
I mean, I would wait a little bit, but obviously before you're applying for college, I mean, if you're
senior year, because you won't take them senior year, right? The waiver could change.
I guess you could, but I mean, I don't know what the point would be because you're using your junior transcript to apply for college. So I'm not entirely sure why you would change your transcript your senior year if it's what got you in already. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe, but I thought I had heard that you couldn't change it. And that makes sense because your transcript's already set. So somebody said, my son did part-time homeschooling enrollment for geometry in 8th grade and took Algebra 2 from an online. Will he need to take geometry in high school? No, if he did it,
you have to give it a transcript.
Yeah, as long as it's on his transcript, it should be fine. Summer courses for WANIC, are they the same? I'm assuming you mean subjects. They change them every year. It depends. They'll list the schedule. Is Hindi considered a world language requirement? Yes, you can take that test we were talking about. I'm sure. I think Hindi's one of them.
There are like 150 languages. Yeah. It's pretty impressive.
Yes, the waiver can be filled out still in junior year. It doesn't have to be done in sophomore year. can incoming freshmen take any classes this summer? I don't know why you, I don't know. I mean, I guess you're saying, I don't know if it means retaking classes or a BYU class or an Apex class. Like I said, this is my personal opinion. The only math class a student should be taking to try to progress is geometry, because it's a standalone class. I still don't think they need to do that, because a student can take geometry and algebra 2 in the same year. It's an elective, but they can do that, right?
I think it's kind of school dependent. I'm to be quite honest, like.
Well, I just remember my daughter when she was in, I mean, this is years ago, but she took bio and chem the same year. It just was one of her electives because she wanted to be able to take advanced sciences. So I think you can, but geometry in summer is okay to do to reach algebra 2. Personally, I think it is, if my son did that, but just remember the grades do count, because because 9th grade technically starts the day 8th grade is over. So that's what my son didn't realize when he did it years ago. He had
it's also subject to space.
Yeah.
You're going to be, it's tricky, like just space dependent.
Yeah. Are term quarter grades on your high school transcript? No, just semester grades. And colleges don't look at quarter grades at all. They only see semester grades.
They do they will randomly email counselors and ask for a grade report. Okay. Yep. They will ask for a screenshot. I have gotten that all of my 10 years.
Okay.
Yep.
Is UW pre-calc and math analysis the same? They're the same, but they're different, because UW pre-calculus, that is a quarter-long UW math class that is given over a whole year. So it is considered more rigorous than math analysis, but I think the content is fairly similar. You'd have to talk to your teachers about that. What to do if a student does not learn their math class? I don't know what that means. What do you think that means?
Maybe they didn't learn anything in math?
Yeah, doing geometry in 9th grade is okay. Absolutely. Yeah. This is the sequence. Okay. This is what I call normal sequence. I hate to use the word normal, but 9th grade is algebra 1. 10th grade is geometry. 11th grade is algebra 2, and senior year would be pre-calculus or math analysis. That's the normal. A lot of students are advanced 1 or 2 years. That's great. But just so everybody knows, that is the normal sequence for math. So
also, Mary Pat, see people who have students who have that typical math sequence and get into UW.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Because I think what gets really tricky is oftentimes there's like this bug in someone's ear that they need to do all of the advanced things to get into UW. I have seen students who have like dozens of AP and they get into UW. I have seen students who do not have any get into UW.
Exactly.
It's all based on enrollment that fluctuates every year.
So somebody asked, where can a student take health classes in the summer? I know Wanik offers the health.
Sometimes,
yeah. But typically they do offer it, right? Usually. BYU does the health, right?
They do, but yeah, they do.
Well, and I will say, FYI, if you take, I don't know how Apex works as much, but if you take a BYU class, BYU is Brigham Young University. They have high school classes. They give A minuses. And if you get an A minus in a BYU health class, it shows up as an A minus. I know a student who his 4.0, again, it wasn't a big deal. His mom was like, what? She was like very upset because his 4.0 was no longer a 4.0 because they give an A minus. So just know that. So someone asked, will someone fail geometry if they didn't learn algebra? Well, you have algebra 1. That's what you take first. And geometry is a separate subject.
It's on its own. I mean, geometry and algebra are like, it's like Spanish and French. They're both world languages, but they're very different. So it is not atypical for me to have students who do really well in algebra and struggle with geometry, and then do really well in algebra 2. That algebraic mind might be something that's not unique. I've also had students who algebra 1 and algebra 2 have been tricky, and geometry, they were like, finally it spoke to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unique. It happened. Yeah.
I'm laughing. Somebody said, when does this Zoom end? Like, well, it was supposed to end 45 minutes ago, and you can sign off anytime you want.
You can hop off at any time, I promise.
Just trying to answer questions. I'm
Link.
sorry. Do counselors send only semester GPAs or quarter and semester for college applications?
Only semester is required, unless the college asks. And when colleges asks, it's typically via email. And what I do is 9 times out of 10, actually, I would say 100% of the time, because I just feel like it makes me feel more comfortable, I'll copy the student on them, because there's no secret here. Like there's there's no hiding. I'm sending it to them.
Yeah. So if a student requests classes and they don't get them, can they take them outside of school and still show up on my high school transcript? I'm thinking like maybe.
I mean, typically it would be an elective, because core classes, you don't, well, that's a double negative. You get, I mean, it's not like we're not going to put you in English.
Right.
Or social studies.
So, I mean, like, let's say somebody, like, if I'm assuming, okay, let's pretend somebody wanted to take like a computer science class and they don't get into it. Could you, yeah, you could maybe take a class at Bellevue College or in the summer. Now, whether or not it won't end up on your transcript though, but you can take it for your own knowledge. And then they're going to give, if you don't get the class you asked for, they're going to give you something else, because they're going to make sure you fulfill your graduation requirements, right?
100%.
Yeah. So, okay. BYU grade will be counted. Oh no, whatever, if a student takes a class through BYU or Apex, whatever, if you're taking, and again, remember, you need permission for all this. You can't just take a class.
Yeah.
Whatever grades you get, that's going to show up on your transcript. So,
yep.
If a class has been retaken, does only the new grade? Nope, they both show up. But again, there's a spot to explain what happened. And most colleges are going to go, great, wow, good on you, you retook a class.
Yes, but just remember that the new grades, the retaken class, that's calculated in your GPA, not the old ones.
Someone asked, can a student do AP Calculus and then AP Stats? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So 3 years of math in high school is required. A number of colleges do like to see in senior year what's called a math-based class, and a student could take a math class too. There's nothing wrong with that, but AP statistics is not a math class. It is a math-based class. Physics is a math-based class. Computer science is considered a math-based class. So I usually tell students to hold on to stats or physics for senior year, just to do that, to fulfill that. Okay, I don't know if you know the answer. I don't know. So if a student has met all credit requirements by junior year and are taking Cambridge, could they take Running Start part-time for 3 of their classes? I don't know.
Cambridge students can't do Running Start.
Okay, there we go. Are summer classes online? And I'm assuming they mean district summer classes.
Well, like the credit retrieval? Are we talking like you have failed the class and are doing it over again?
Well, so there's 2 types of summer classes through the district, right? There's the ones where you didn't do well and you need to retake the class. And then isn't there some that if you wanted to be, I don't know.
Nope, only for 8th to 9th grade.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So it's only just to retake a class because of grade.
So at the high school level, when you're doing summer school, it is because you have not successfully passed that class.
Okay.
Yep.
And are they offered online or are they only in person?
It's like in person online. So it's offered via Fuel Ed at the building. So you show up for the building, and there historically what it's looked like is like 9 to noon is like all
Yeah.
your semester 1 classes, and then like afternoon or semester 2, you can take a maximum of 2 classes for credit retrieval over the summer.
Okay. Someone asked about the Issaquah School District. They have A minuses, B. Yes, Issaquah does A minus, B plus. I don't think they do A plus. Most schools don't. Again, if you look at your transcript, there is always a code. It shows the grading scale that a district offers. Do you need to be a Spanish speaker to get a good grade in Spanish class? No, you just have to pay attention, learn the material.
But the district does have a really cool, most schools have a class now that's called Spanish for Heritage Speakers. And so it is a Spanish class for students who that is their home language.
Okay.
And it is awesome. Like really, really cool class. So if you are a heritage speaker, make sure you sign up for that class.
Someone asked if it's easier to get into UW if you do running start and do well. Again,
it's all individual.
It's all individual.
Yeah.
And we'll attend the College 101 session on the 7th. We'll go deep. Can a student complete all of their credits in 9th and 10th grade? I'm assuming they mean the 24 credits, and skip 11th and 12th grades to go to undergraduate college.
That sounds torturous.
It does. I've never met a student who did, but
no, I mean, you get a maximum of 7 credits per year. So that's 14.
Yeah. On a transcript, will semester level grades be reported as it goes, or at the quarter level? It's at the semester level.
No volunteer hours required for graduation. You would just be a really great person.
Right. So how do I tell colleges what classes I'm taking if I'm in running start? I know that's tricky, but again, you should be meeting with your counselor and be planning this stuff out. And so if you tell on your college application, I'm going to be taking English 142, and for whatever reason you end up taking English 140, that's not a big deal. No big deal. But if that English 145 becomes weightlifting, then you'll just want to email them, go, hey, I had said I was going to take this class. This is what happened. I couldn't take it, so I'm taking weightlifting. Like,
that happens more often than not, because classes will fill up. Yeah. It's just like any other registration process. They get full. It happens.
Let's see. When can a student start writing colleges for essay? That would be the summer. I recommend the summer before senior year. Find Your Fit does essay workshops and all that. So let's see. Do electives come on a first come, first serve basis?
What do you mean?
I think they mean like who gets them.
I mean, we certainly are. So if we've got an elective that is really full and we're trying to figure out how to balance it, right? So like, let's say it's a computer class, but in the computer lab, we only have 32 computers, but 38 people are in it. Like, we got to move people. There's just like physically not space, like they can't. And like fire code capacity, teacher capacity ratio. And so if that's the case, typically what we would do is we would run the roster and we would look, okay, is there a senior that needs this for graduation? Do they need this for their grad pathway? Is there a junior that is here now who needs this for a grad pathway? It doesn't mean that because you're a freshman, you're going to be pulled out. We're looking also, did you request it? You know, like, we want it to be because somebody wants to be there. But we are certainly prioritizing seniors. Yeah, 100%. We need them to graduate. And if your student is anything but a senior, that means they have an opportunity to take it again.
Yeah. Someone was asking, when you say colleges like to see more foreign language, do you mean more years of the language, or will a high AP score in Spanish achieve the same effect? You know, this is tricky because I know some students, because their home language, you know, the language that's spoken in the house might be an AP, you know, and maybe it's AP Spanish, maybe it's AP Mandarin, or, you know, Japanese or whatever. So you can certainly do that. And I think, does that fulfill the requirement if a student takes the AP level, or do they still have to?
Like, if they take the AP exam and like pass it, does it give them credits?
Yeah, like, does that, I don't think it fulfills the graduation.
It's not credit bearing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's
Yes.
where taking that world language exam and not getting a grade, but you get the credits, that
And it's
counts.
free.
Again, if you hate languages, don't worry about it. You don't, but some kids just love languages. So
Yeah.
when is Rose Hill Middle going to register for high school? I have no idea. Do you know?
I mean, I would assume that LW is probably doing it right now. I mean, they've got to be in the middle of it. I would look on LW's website and maybe even Rose Hill website to check when their registration dates are.
So someone was asking if an Ivy League college, we'll say highly selective college, prefer and recognize AP courses over Running Start. Yes, I will say that they typically will. And the reason why is because the AP, advanced placement classes, are governed by the College Board. So colleges know that when a student takes the AP language arts test, that's a known, they know exactly what it is, versus if a student is taking a Running Start class and it's, English 175 at Bellevue College, they may not know what that is. But again, if that's the right path for a student, is Running Start, do Running Start, because Ivy League schools, it has nothing to do with students being qualified. It's just there's too many students applying. Attend College 101. I don't want to get into that whole conversation right now. It's too deep. If a student attends Running Start in 12th grade plus 1 year after that, so they do community college in order to get an AA, will that be treated as a transfer student? Absolutely. That student would be a transfer student. And FYI, UW and all the four-year state colleges, they prioritize transfer students with associate degrees over anybody else. Because sometimes kids will be like, oh, I can't get into UW Seattle. And I'll be like, oh, why don't you go to community college? And they're like, no, I'm going to go to Bothell. I'm like, no. Bellevue College, like Washington Tech, Seattle Central, all those schools, if you have your associate's degree, now you still have to do well because it's competitive, but you'll have a better chance because they prioritize it.
Well, they also do their GPA requirements, they bump down pretty significantly if you are a transfer student. So when you're applying afterwards, when you have your AA degree, the GPA requirement for you is lower. And you're kind of a sure thing. The highest rate of college dropout happens your freshman and sophomore year. Yeah. If you get it through your freshman and sophomore year and you have your AA degree, you're kind of a sure thing. Like you've already made it.
But like, let's say, if a student's wanting to apply like to Foster School of Business or something as a transfer, you still have to do well. You have to have.
Oh, yes. Yeah, but I'm just saying that like for the GPA, they drop it.
Yes, absolutely. Someone asked if Lake Washington offers IB. Nope, we do not. Nope. No IB. If a class has been retaken in the summer, it is only the new grade. No, we talked about this. They both show up.
Yep.
Okay, my child took Algebra 1 in 7th grade while he was online during COVID, but couldn't take Algebra 2 in 8th grade since he returned in person and the class was full. Should he transfer 7th grade algebra grade, or would it be a concern?
Well, you couldn't take Algebra 2 in 8th grade because it's not offered. You would have taken geometry.
That's right. Yeah, you can't take Algebra 2 in 8th grade. It's not offered. Thank you. My brain's going dead.
Yeah, you're good. Gap year in 12th grade.
Well, you can't take a gap year in 12th grade.
My assumption would be gap year after 12th grade.
Yeah.
No, amazing idea.
Yeah. Just make sure you do something. Don't sit around and watch Netflix. But it's like,
but even if doing something is getting a job,
that's what I mean.
Pay for things like. I mean, it cannot be undervalued. A year of experiencing being a pseudo grown-up and preparing yourself and getting a great idea of what you want to do next.
Yep. Somebody's asking about what computer languages they teach in computer science. I have no idea. I'm sorry. I
specific to East Lake, so I would ask you.
Yeah. Does PE grade affect GPA? How is PE graded? Now, Yeah, it does, but like if you're applying to the University of California schools, they don't look at PE. It's an elective. They don't consider it. So,
But it
but
absolutely,
typically it does.
but it definitely affects your GPA. It is graded like every other
Yep.
class.
Yep.
And so while they might not, California might not do it, Washington state schools do. And it definitely impacts your GPA of getting into schools.
So somebody asked, they said that sometimes kids in choice schools might have a lower GPA because of the rigor. Would that affect college admission? What I always tell students who are in choice schools like Tesla, ICS, Cambridge, again, I mentioned that there, and I'll talk about this in College 101, but there's a spot on the college application that says, hey, is there anything else we should know about? And yes, there is the school report that we talked about, but I always tell students to flag, just be like, hey, FYI, I attend a choice lottery-based school in my district. The curriculum is very rigorous and students pretty much have no choice with their classes. And that's all they say. And it just kind of, I've seen that be effective, maybe with students. And the flip side is if a student has done very well in this choice school, it can make the college go, oh, wow, they've done great. Good for them. So what is the name of the Spanish class you mentioned? What Spanish class? The heritage one, I think.
Heritage speakers?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Spanish for heritage speakers, and it'll be in that course catalog in the Lake Washington.
Is it offered at all the schools? I hadn't heard about that one, so.
It's at Juanita, it's at LW.
Okay.
I know those two for sure, but if you look at the course catalog, you can see it under world language and go across and it'll show you all the schools that that you can take it up.
Okay, here's a question, and we're almost done here. So someone said, where do I see, is there a spot where high schools report what colleges their students have been accepted to?
Say that one more time.
Someone said, where do I see which colleges, they're asking about Eastlake here, have been accepted to recently? Do they show that?
Like if your student has been accepted to
no, like I think what the parent is asking, like, oh, where are Eastlake students accepted to for college? I think that's what they're trying to find. Like, and I don't know that that's shown.
That's not going to be public knowledge because that's students' education and they're typically under 18, so they can't actually publish.
Well, I don't think they mean by name, but just like, like, oh, 20 kids went to UW last year. And I don't know. I think that's what they're asking.
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, that demographic they likely have. Yeah. Maybe in the counseling office with the registrar, because the registrar has to know where to submit transcripts.
I always tell, because sometimes people ask me that question and I'm always like, I don't think it's pertinent. It depends on the student. Like just, I don't think that's important. Everybody's welcome. Someone asked if it's easier to get into UW as a transfer versus a freshman. It depends on the student and what their grades are. And I mean, I would say I like data. From a data standpoint, it's easier to get in as a freshman because there's more spots available. Yeah. In order to have transfer spots, you need to have people leave. So
also, I will say that UW-Bothell is an awesome option. If you
oh my gosh.
If you're asking about UW and it's not because of one of their like specialized majors, right? If you're not going into Foster's or computer science or engineering, like let's just
they have business, they have computer science.
Yeah. But I'm just saying if that's not like if you're not like one track mind, like your student is like, nope, it must look like that. UW-Bothell, when you graduate from UW-Bothell, your diploma does not say UW-Bothell. It says University of Washington.
Because, and that's the thing, UW holds their professors and everything to the same standard. The beautiful thing about UW-Bothell or even UW-Tacoma, you're in small classes.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. You could be in 25 students. You can get to know your professors. You can do research versus being in a class with 800 people.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and if you're even considering this AA degree and then transferring, so UW-Bothell shares campus with Cascadia Community College, which does running start. So your student could go to Cascadia for 2 years, finish up their AA degree, literally walk across the street and go to UW-Bothell.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunities. All right, everybody, this has gone much, much longer. Taylor, thank you. I owe you dinner or something like that.
Oh my gosh. I'm so happy to help. I'm so amazed that there are, to be honest, so many questions.
Yeah, well, we had We had over 200, about 200 people participated tonight, so that was great. And I thank everybody for sitting through all this, and hopefully we
Yeah,
answered your questions.
I hope it was helpful.
Oh, everybody said the comments were positive. So
Oh, good.
anyways, sign up for College 101 if there are a lot of questions that will be answered there. We were trying to keep it to the picking classes tonight. So Taylor, have a good night. Thanks for giving up your family time tonight, and have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.